Hey, let's not, listen. Listen. All right. Okay, I need everybody up here real quick because we need to just decompress and talk for just a minute. We're throwing together, a huge production in a very short amount of time, and it's stressing everybody. Okay. Understood. Let me let correct. Well, and that's what he was trying to express is we're going to buy time hour by hour, and so his way of communicating that under the stress he's under um, may not have translated, but we're going to be fine. We're just going to have to jettison certain content as we go along. We're going to have to be patient with each other and pull screens up periodically to make sure that we're good to go on that stuff. So we just have to, tempers have to be in check, egos have to be in check, and we have to understand that this is, we're putting together I understand that. He's working on very little sleep with the editing. Yep. 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 That's great. Can I still get everybody up here? If I can get everybody just for 5 minutes. Everybody in the house. 5 minutes. We are a half an hour from going live, and I need everybody just to come up for just 5 minutes. Matt, this is you. This is the, okay, and then we'll get you tied up. And I literally hooked all the packs, labeled them where I was, and then am struggling to remember which number goes to which actual receiver in the pack. Know where they're at. Number 1. Of course. Okay, is everybody up here? Okay. All right, guys. I'll get you some alcohol. You coming? Okay. I just wanted to say a couple things before we get started, guys. Number 1, when you read a book, it is what it is. It gets turned into a script, and then it gets turned into a movie. And very rarely do they ever match. Okay? We put together a lot of work, a lot of hard time into putting a script together, putting videos together, but our final product may not look exactly what we're doing, and we have to be able to just roll with that and know that we're going to do the best quality that we possibly can and not get egos or getting pissy with each other. And I understand we're all on a very little bit of sleep and everything like that. So I want to ask everybody, please be mindful. We're all trying to raise money for these people. And so one of the things I do here constantly in my man cave is I don't like drama, and I don't like conflict. I like conflict resolution, and I am a part of the stress that Tim and I deal with, and Tim and I have talked many times. He'll say things to me, and I go, I haven't looked at that yet. And when you say that, I'm a problem solver. And because I'm a problem solver, when you say that and it's not an actual problem yet for me, it creates such anxiety and stress that I react incorrectly to him. And I don't want anybody to do that here. I want us all to flow. And so that's the main thing I wanted to say, and I do want to do a prayer real quick. So if everybody's good with that, just be mindful of each other, and let's work together. There are going to be some bugs. There are going to be some issues. I watch multiple broadcasts on different channels, and they have Skype cut out. They have Zoom cut out. They have audio issues. They have headphone packs that die. The more we absorb that and just roll with it, the smoother it will be, and realize what these people need to see is our humanity. And so mistakes may even translate better because we're being human, and we understand that we're putting this together. Good? Okay. Lord, we thank you for what you're doing. We first and foremost lift up all the electors and all the other people that are being persecuted throughout our great country for simply standing up for freedom, for wanting the truth to come out. And we ask, Lord, your first and foremost, your protection over them. We ask, as this occasion is, for financial resources to come in such abundance that we can overwhelm the lawfare that's being placed before them. And Lord, we speak against all of those tyrants and people standing in government offices that have forgot their oath and have forgot who they are, who are trying to persecute people for simply standing up for freedom and truth. And Lord, I ask for each and every one here today, helping with the broadcast, those in the call center, everybody involved today, that you give us first and foremost your peace, just to rest and reign over us right now. We command that peace to come over us. Lord, I ask that you would give us all wisdom to know how to operate and navigate throughout the day today. And I ask that for your blessing and your guidance by your Spirit through everything we do. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys, let's have a great show. I've got small ones here for... I did. No, mistakes are going to happen. Let's roll with them, and let's enjoy it. Tim is extremely perfectionist, and when he doesn't feel that he can deliver that, trying to help him see the numbers. Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. You good, buddy? You're capturing live or capturing stills? Excellent. Did you meet Matt? Yeah. Matt, do you want to go? I've got both these doors locked. Oh, you've already in here? Where's Deb? Deb? Or Dar? That's what I needed. Dar. Can you put this one on the outside of that door? I know we already put the. Yep, no, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Check, check, check. Actual crew. Nope, just the. Mom's not feeling good. I'm gonna fix that. Wherever you can help me. Forwards and back. Organize people. Can we make sure? Can you make sure we've got a clear path going that way? I see there's a chair pulled out. We're bringing guests around all the way to the door. Not if it's going to bother you. You're the only one allowed through there. Okay. Huh? No, it's locked. That door's locked and posted. So no, we just need to be able to walk the guests around here. In fact, yes. That's good. Thank you.
Alcohol. We need it because
Stay happy.
she used
I know.
permanent marker on the board.
Stay happy.
I'm fine.
I know you are. I'm speaking that over the whole day. 'Cause I love you. Got it. I'm getting the alcohol. Thought I was getting the alcohol. It's denatured vinegar. Or that's vinegar. My denatured alcohol. No, I've got my bottle here somewhere. I don't remember where it's at. Yeah. Big bottle. I've got both. But I got a spray bottle. Everything working, Bill? They'll make more. They grow it in trees. Right here. So don't use those markers again. Right? Okay, you got that? Watch your hands. Keep using more towels because ink will get on you. I am not hearing back from Logan or Brandon.
Has my hand? Okay. How come I'm not hearing myself? Hey, I don't care if I hear now I hear myself. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. I'd like to open with an apology. We're a little tardy, but I want you to understand that everyone here is a volunteer, and we are doing the best that we can to do something to help these electors defray their legal expenses. This is a big undertaking, and we appreciate your participation. And I'd like to just get people to immediately try to use the link at Give, Send, Go so that we could have a great balance going and start building some synergy here. We are able to be here today because Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit has been so gracious as to let us use his Rumble channel. And I'd like to introduce Jim because he has been an incredible supporter of the electors, and he's somebody that we all respect very much. Gateway Pundit, as you know, has been on the front line of conservative news and trying to put out real news, not fake news. And as a result, a lot of us have depended on that news so that we can find out what the real story is. If you may or may not know, our Attorney General charged 16 people that are just regular, everyday citizens with 8 felony counts and up to 80 years in prison for submitting an alternate set of electors to the vice president in the event that President Trump's litigation and pending investigations were successful in overturning the results in Michigan's election. These people are not malicious people. They're not criminal. There was no criminal intent. And now they're being faced with thousands and thousands of dollars, in some case $100,000s of dollars, to just clear their name and to prove their innocence. This is such an overwhelming task that we're reaching out to all of you and asking you to please help these people. They protected your vote, and now it's time for us to protect them. And ultimately, when we do that by your generous giving, we can help pay their legal bills and hopefully put this all behind them and their lives without them being financially devastated by what has become a really, really expensive, stressful, traumatic experience for many good people. This could be you, and I just want you to understand that if you were in their position, you would hope that people would step up and that they would ultimately donate. So please do that. Please go to GiveSendGo.com. Use the QR code that we have up on the screen. You can just scan it with your cell phones. And without further ado, I think Jim Hoft is ready to go. And I'd like to bring him into the screen so that he and I could just talk a little bit about what he's been up to and some of the things he sees, as a newsman around the country. So we are doing a lot of these interviews live via Zoom, and the coordination of it is really quite a marvel from a technology standpoint. So we are all just doing the best we can with these particular issues. In the meantime, I don't know if we are going to go to, if we're going to go to that video we had talked about as an introduction, or if we're going right to Jim. But in the meantime, what I'd like to say too is that the Electoral College basically has been in our country's history all the way from the late 1800s, and ultimately every state, based on its population, has given so many members of Congress, and then each state is allowed to create congressional districts. Well, in those congressional districts, we have elections, both parties, to elect electors that serve as representatives of those people vote, and then ultimately they sign a certificate.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes. Whatever
Okay, they're having a little bit of
party
technical
does,
difficulties,
so
so if you can hang on for a minute, we'd be
can receive
grateful.
the electoral votes when the
Thank you for your
electoral vote is
patience.
counted in Washington, D.C. So Michigan at the time of the 2020 election had 14 congressional districts, and we had 14 electors, and we also have 2 senators in every state. So 14 plus 2 gives you 16 electors, and that's how Michigan came up with that number. Now, those 16 electoral votes can only be acted upon if the vice president, who is the president of the Senate, when he's overseeing the joint session of Congress, which becomes the Electoral College, he basically opens the certificates and goes state by state in alphabetical order and reads their particular vote, and then the votes are tallied, and because we need 270 votes to be successful to win the presidency, they are read until 270 is reached, and ultimately the new president is selected, or the incumbent is reselected. So at this time, it looks like we are ready to go live with the founder of Gateway Pundit and the gentleman who's making this broadcast possible. Jim Hoft, welcome.
Hey, Matt, great to be with you this morning. I'm really pleased to be part of this Save Our Electors Telethon.
Well, we're really glad that you're here today. I wanted to know if you wanted to just give an overview of what you see happening nationally, different states, 7 different states submitted alternate lists of electors and how they're handling it. Just give us an overview of everything that you see, because you're really a national news person and we're focusing on the Michigan story.
Well, I think the thing that I'm seeing, and we put up a report on this earlier today, but what has happened now in our country is that we have some people who want to outlaw and criminalize their political opponents. And I think Michigan is the greatest example of that with Dana Nessel and what she's done to these 16 electors. Just this morning, we put up a report, we heard this yesterday, that the federal government, the FBI, has created this card system, like a playing card system, like they did with Saddam Hussein and his henchmen during the Iraq War. They had these playing cards. Well, they've done the same thing with ordinary Americans who attended the rally on January 6th. They supposedly have 3,200 of these cards. So the government is targeting conservatives. We need to wake up to this. And I'm not saying that as a conspiracy theorist, Matt. I'm saying that as factually we have the proof of these different things. Again, who would have thought 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that Michigan electors, alternative electors, would be charged with crimes of conspiracy and forgery because they stood up on January 6th and they were ready to represent their state. They did nothing wrong. We know that. There was no laws broken. And these people are being persecuted. And when you hear their stories, these 16, we have a retired police officer, we have a veteran, we have widows, without, their husband's support. We have wonderful people there who have, been in politics and want the best for this country. It's not that they want to tear down this country. They want what is best to leave to their children and grandchildren. And they're being persecuted for that. We've never seen anything like this in American history that I'm aware of. And I feel privileged to be a part of this today, Matt. And I hope it has great success.
Well, thanks again, Jim. I mean, this is not possible without your generosity and your support. The Muskegon story is becoming a big national story. I wanted to know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Right. So isn't it interesting that Dana Nessel says when she indicted these 16 that there's no proof of election fraud? Well, we certainly have found a significant amount of fraud. We're just starting to release some of this information, by the way. We released some reports already from Muskegon, and I have to give thanks to Phil O'Halloran and Braden Jacobazi and Patricia and Ben Wetmore and a group of people in Michigan who really have done a lot of legwork on this. But what we found is that there was at least 8,000 to 10,000, Dana Nessel has admitted this, of suspected fraudulent registrations that were turned into Muskegon in 2020, weeks before the election. the Attorney General came out and said, oh, we caught the fraud. The system works. And I can guarantee you right now today that the system did not work, because as many of your listeners and viewers know, on Friday, the Gateway Pundit, we released a second set of very incriminating evidence that this was statewide in Michigan. It wasn't just one isolated county, but this was actually happening. This group, GBI Strategies, which is linked to Empower Michigan, which shares the same address as the Democrat Party of Michigan in Lansing, Michigan. They were sending out these packages of fraudulent registrations to several counties across Michigan. And we have that, we have the clerks speaking about this. We have evidence of that. We also know that when this GBI Strategies was sending out these packages, that they were also included in bundles that were marked PPE, or protective equipment, protective safety equipment. They'd open the packages, these clerks, and they'd find registrations and like masks, like face masks. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so many red flags here. And yet this was going on before the election. We have a lot more coming out, Matt. And I can tell you, Jocelyn Benson should be a bit worried today, because we have some great articles that are coming out about her actions that's really going to get her in the hot seat. These people, I don't believe, and this is my opinion, of course, I don't believe they've been honest with the people of Michigan, and we're out to prove that. So we have some great pieces coming out in the coming days, and we support these 16 electors 100%. These patriotic Americans, and it's a tragedy that they're being targeted by these radicals who are leading the state of Michigan today.
You know,
I think we lost his sound.
All right, can you hear me now, Jim?
Yes, fantastic.
Okay. We're working our way through some technical
Sure.
stuff right now. I just want to wrap it up and say, you had mentioned earlier 10,000 votes basically were found, not votes, but registrations were found in the Muskegon story. If this truly is statewide, I can't imagine what the total amount of registrations this is going to work out to be.
Absolutely, and this needs to be looked at. And Michigan, along with several other states, I know they use the ERIC system that's supposed to be cleaning out the voter rolls, and it has not been doing that historically. So this needs to be looked at. We all want fair elections. Dana Nessel and Jocelyn Benson and Gretchen Whitmer say they want fair elections. Well, let's have them. And that means cleaning up the voter rolls. That needs to be done. And we're gonna report and give evidence why that needs to be done in the state of Michigan in the coming days.
thank you very much, Jim.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you for creating this forum for us so that we can do some good. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, as we've been mentioning, there is a desperate need to help 16 people who have been charged with 8 felony counts, everything from conspiracy to commit election fraud to conspiracy to commit uttering and publishing and forgery, and all of these other charges together equal about 80 years in prison. And as a result, the legal fees in order to just prove their innocence is just mind-blowing. And we're here today trying to do something for them. And I need you to use that QR code that's on your screen. If you want to do an old school telethon, please call in on the 1-800 number, 888-403-8550. You can go to givesendgo.com/Michigan Electors. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can open your heart and help these people, and it would mean the world to them because this is a devastating situation. The other thing we'd like to ask is that you go on your own social media and post the link to this Rumble feed so that we can get more and more people to view so that we can ultimately raise as much money as possible. So please post this on all your social medias, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you happen to be, Truth Social. We'd love to, even Instagram. We'd love to know that everyone in your social network is aware of the fact that we are raising money for this great cause. We started out trying to figure out which way would be the correct way to raise money. We didn't know what kind of a fundraiser we should do. And ultimately, when the Michigan Conservative Coalition was brainstorming, our own Patty McMurray said, why don't we do an old school Jerry Lewis style telethon where we, go on nationally and we make a plea to the public. And the outpouring of support has been unbelievable. We've got great names coming up on this broadcast. We have Steve Bannon and Newt Gingrich and the DC Drano and Laura Loomer. So many amazing people that have had such an incredible impact for the conservative movement, and to not let this story die of the 2020 election. So, all of their support and hopefully their social networks will mean a lot to all of us. I know we have coming up the president's own attorney, John Eastman, and that should be an incredible interview in that he has been so involved from, prior to the election through where he is today. When he was down in Georgia, he was there with the president and was also indicted and booked and arrested that day when the president turned himself in. 19 indictments down in Georgia. And you just have to ask yourself, these are regular, everyday people that are just volunteers in their own party and interested in politics, and they love their country, they love their president, they believe in conservative principles, and so much so that their congressional districts elected them to be electors. And, they're called to sign on a certificate that can get submitted as an alternate list of electors. And ultimately, that list of electors made its way to the vice president as an alternate list, and President Trump was not able to have an overturn decision of the election in the courts. And when the electoral vote took place, Michigan's electors were given to Joe Biden. So I don't really think that doing something that's been done so many times before in our history.
We're getting ready to launch you live, okay, Mr. Eastman?
Really
Thank you. Thank you.
Big problem. I just look back at Hawaii in 1960. We had, Nixon was ahead of Kennedy. It was a very close race. It was within a half a percentage point. And ultimately, they had to recount the state. And while the recount was going on, they had the Independent Party, they had the Republican Party, and the Democrat Party all submit alternate lists of electors that were not signed by the governor because no one had declared the state yet. And as a result of that, no one was charged. So we have to ask ourselves, historically, where are we with this prosecution when there's precedent from other states and other elections where this has happened? So I'm very excited to bring in the president's attorney, John Eastman. He's going to be able to tell us a lot about what went on last week down in Georgia and give us an overview of his feeling about this. John, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much, and I'm so sorry the electors up in Michigan are having to deal with this, being on the receiving end of what I call asymmetric lawfare.
Wow. Why don't you tell us about last week? You had a very interesting week.
Well, so, obviously the district attorney down in Georgia filed an unbelievable, literally unbelievable 41 count indictment charging 19 people, including the former president of the United States, with, among other things, racketeering, essentially claiming that his political campaign and his efforts to challenge the legality of the 2020 election were a criminal conspiracy. Never before in our history has anything even remotely like this occurred. A number of the defendants were contingent electors in the state of Georgia, just like the contingent electors up in Michigan that are now on the receiving end of a criminal prosecution of their own. They followed exactly the precedent set by John Kennedy's electors in Hawaii in 1960, even to the point of copying the certificate language itself, while simultaneously and contemporaneously making very clear statements that they were doing so because there was still pending litigation, and that litigation quite arguably would have become moot if they had not met and cast their votes on the day that the Constitution authorizes Congress to designate as the uniform day for casting electoral votes. So that's what we have, and the millions of dollars that are needed for these defenses is exactly what the left is up to try and bankrupt folks for taking a stand against the illegality in the election that they saw with their own eyes.
It's unbelievable. I know that you yourself personally are being submitted to lawfare out in California. How is that going? I understand that they tried to disbar you.
Well, they're still working on it. The bar trial reconvenes today for another 2 weeks, and we'll see whether it goes beyond that. That will have ended up being 4 weeks already of a full trial. They're basically asserting that when I said there was election illegality, that makes me responsible for defending what went on in every state where challenges were brought, even states that I had nothing to do with. So they're putting on a bunch of government officials that say, of course, our election was perfect. And you should believe us because we say so. There was actually one point where my witness was barred because his analysis occurred after the fact, and therefore I couldn't have relied on it. And the government then offered a report that they did on the election after the fact. And the government argued successfully that report got in because it was the government that said that one. So we really have what I've described as an authoritarian moment here. It says, we're the government, we've decided what is truth, and you just need to bend the knee despite all the evidence to the contrary. And we're seeing it in these election challenges, we're seeing it in COVID restrictions, we're seeing it on gender transition surgeries for young children without parental notification or consent. We're seeing it in a lot of things. This truly is Orwellian. Not only do you have to agree with us, say that 2 + 2 = 5, that famous passage, but you actually have to believe it, or we're going to destroy you. That's what we're dealing with. And anybody that doesn't see that is not awake enough to pay attention. They need to pay attention because this is dangerous stuff, as the electors in Michigan are seeing firsthand. And I just applaud you for doing this telethon to help them. And everybody within earshot needs to help them and stand up and send them contributions for their legal defense. Because that's part of the effort here. Bankrupt people who dare to stand up so that nobody else will. And that in the next election, nobody will dare to challenge it, so we'll have a free hand to do with the election whatever we want.
I had the opportunity to speak to Eric Cardell the other day, and he said that he believes that, the punishment here, they have no intention of believing that they're going to win any of this, that the punishment is the process. And bankrupting people and destroying their lives to the point where they are punished, even if they're vindicated.
The head of the 65 Project, which is a fairly radical left-wing organization, staffed with one anti-Trump Republican, but all the rest, longtime Democrat politicos. The head of that organization actually stated in an interview with Axios that our goal is not just to disbar all the lawyers that worked on any of the litigation, but to make them toxic in their firms and their communities so that right-wing legal talent will never want to step up and take on these election challenges again. That clearly is their goal. And as freedom-loving Americans, we need to stand up with it and fight it with everything we've got, or we will lose the precious inheritance our forefathers and foremothers gave to us.
That's unbelievable. I wanted to know if I could impose upon you to make a plea to the viewing audience about donating and why it's necessary.
So, criminal trials are expensive. If you get competent counsel, I've had a number of attorneys down in Georgia tell me it's going to run $1 million to $2 million. I think something similar is going to happen in Michigan. And what they've done is target people of middle class, modest means, who may be able to come up with that kind of money by completely destroying their family finances, their retirement plans, or what have you. Nobody that stood up to do the right thing should have to suffer that consequence alone. So if you've got money, give them a large chunk. If you've got money that you're normally giving to your alma mater, take it this year and give it to these folks that are the legal defense. If you're not of means, just send them a note of support and $5 or $10. Because those things are heartwarming as well. And I'm sure the telethon people have ways to do that. But dig deep if you're able to and help them, because this is going to be very expensive and the burden ought not to fall entirely on their shoulders.
No, well, I really, truly appreciate you saying that, because these are just everyday people. They're super volunteers. They were so well thought of in their own congressional districts that they were the one person that was selected to be their voice and representative for the electoral vote. And I just find it curious that these people placed their names on an alternate list, and they did that to protect our vote. And it's time for us to protect them. This has happened in many other elections and states, hasn't it?
Well, at least one in Hawaii in 1960. There's a wonderful expert declaration or affidavit done by Professor Todd Zawicki that was filed down in the Georgia case. If you all don't already have that, you should get it and post it on your website. It explains in great detail the historical and legal precedent for what was done here, and calls out the DA down in Georgia for basically filing false charges. The same thing, of course, is applicable up in Michigan. And you ought to get that Zawicki, Professor Todd Zawicki. Get his declaration and post it on your telethon website, because I think people would find it extremely informative on what's going on here.
You know, I remember during Bush-Gore in 2000 that there was dialogue about Gore's camp also submitting alternate electors, and it wasn't until I think 3 days before the deadline that the Supreme Court came back and made the decision for everybody, but they were ready to do it too.
They were ready to do it too. A prominent congresswoman from Hawaii, Patsy Mink, pointed out the Hawaii precedent to her colleagues in Congress and in the Gore camp. One of my co-defendants in the Georgia case, Ken Cheesebro, was working for the lead lawyer in the Gore litigation efforts down in Florida, Lawrence Tribe. His name is Ken Cheesebro. And so, I mean, Gore people were ready to do this because the precedent is there. They didn't consider it criminal conduct. The only reason they didn't follow through and have their electors meet and vote is because Gore conceded after the Supreme Court decision a couple days before the vote occurred, and therefore it was no longer necessary. But they were fully prepared to do that. When you have election disputes. So the Constitution is very clear here. Two things that are critically important. The Constitution assigns plenary power to the legislatures to direct the manner of choosing presidential electors. They do that modernly by election codes and popular vote. When those election codes are violated, as they clearly were, you have a failed election. That's what we had. And then the second constitutional provision is Congress has the authority to set the date on which the electors will meet and cast their votes. Set day to be the same throughout the United States. There's a serious issue if electors don't meet on that day and are subsequently certified as the actual winners, whether their votes can be counted when they get to Congress. This happened once in our history when a blizzard prevented electors in Wisconsin from voting in 1856. Congress debated whether they could count those votes for several days. They were counted by the vice president, or the person who was filling the role of the vice president at the time, but they were not outcome determinative, and so it remains unclear whether that was constitutional or not. So to protect the pending litigation, in any one of those cases, Michigan and Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in any one of those cases, if the case had come out differently and the certification comes down from the court that said, well, the Trump electors actually won, they are the proper electors, there'd be a serious question whether their votes could be counted. So they were preserving the litigation option, which is exactly what we're supposed to do.
What seems absolutely insane to me is that why the states don't already have set up within their election law and procedure that both parties should submit their list of electors and one will be named alternate.
I don't know the inner workings of the Michigan statutes, but I'll tell you in Georgia, they have exactly that. If there's an election challenge filed, then and this is spelled out in the Zwicky Declaration, if there's an election challenge filed, technically both slates are contingent until the election's challenge is resolved. So both sides were technically contingent electors. One of them had a governor's certificate of ascertainment, but that was contingent under Georgia law on the outcome of the election challenge. An election challenge that never even got a judge appointed, by the way, until well too late, until the end of December, and then the initial status conference hearing scheduled 2 days after the joint meeting of Congress. So these are the kind of things that we were dealing with on the law front. And the electors stepped up to preserve the validity of their vote if a court or other authoritative body like the state legislature had determined they had actually won the election.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here, John Eastman. I wish you luck in all of the litigation you are involved in right now, and I know that you're obviously one of the most talented legal minds in our country. And I really hope that you're able to seek and receive justice in your disbarment trial.
Thank you very much. And my prayers and support go out to the Michigan electors. Stay strong. Know that a good portion of the country is with you, offering prayers. And I hope as a result of this telethon, offering enough financial support that you don't have to take the financial hit. As well as the stress hit that you're undoubtedly dealing with.
Okay,
Godspeed.
All right, now we're transitioning over to some other video. This is going to be, I believe, a human interest video, and it's going to profile one of our electors, and I think we'll see if we got it up and ready to go. I want you to watch this and try to understand that we're dealing with everyday people, and this could be you, this could be me, and we need to support them and help them. Scan that QR code that's on your television screen, dial 1-888-403-8550 if you'd rather call in. You can go to givesendgo.com /Michigan electors. All of it's possible.
The day-to-day stress about living like this, I've described it to people as being diagnosed with cancer. I think that's probably what it's like. You just don't know if you're going to survive it or not. But of course, you turn much closer to God at times like this.
I feel strong spiritually. I spend a ton of time in prayer. I wake up in the middle of the night and I do have fear. But I mean, that's not new. I've had that before. I try to spend more time in prayer, more time leaning on God's word. And there are so many people that are praying for us. So, it's taken a toll. It's taken a toll on me more where I worry about other people who care about me. I worry about my husband the most because he feels bad about it and he's worried for me. I know he is. And so that hurts me. I feel bad that my kids have to worry and be concerned. I'm happy that I raised 3 kids that are that make light of a lot of things and that they're also very prayerful. I worry about finances. It's taken a toll on us that way, but I know that that's part of the plan. People a lot smarter than me keep telling me that the process is the punishment. And when somebody weaponizes a legal system against people, that the process that they put you through really is the punishment that they envision. And I see.
Well, in these conditions, you find out who your friends truly are. You find out who in the family is willing to bear the brunt with you. And my wife is bearing the brunt. It's very hard on her. It's very harsh on her. It's a very dystopian disillusionment when you're confronted with, the wrongs of the state targeting you. And the wrongs of the state is what we are confronting. We will persevere. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's a tedious journey, and it's a journey, unfortunately, we have to stand up tall to confront, and that's what we're doing. It's unsettling since this has become public. The last week, 10 days of August, we've done nothing but work on every day for the solution. And the solution will be, by God's grace, where we will persevere.
Well, you just got to keep a really positive attitude. And I always kind of try to look on the bright side of things. And I just have this feeling like God never puts anything in your way that he thinks that you can't handle. So obviously, God thinks that I can handle this. And I know in my heart, God has my back. And if God has your back, that's all you need.
I think that is so heartbreaking, and I don't know if that doesn't move you to pick up a phone or to click a link or go online and donate. I don't know what will. These are just regular people who love their country. They love their president. They felt something was wrong with the election. They knew there was pending litigation. They had been elected electors. It's a very, very heartbreaking situation we're dealing with, and if you can find it in your heart to be generous, please do, because this could be you. The next guest that we have coming up is a well-known national figure. He is a incredibly gifted constitutional lawyer. He has argued cases before the U.S. Supreme Court and won. He has argued cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals and won. He's argued cases for Michigan. And I'm really excited to welcome Thor Hearn to our broadcast. And Thor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Welcome. I think I'm going to ask you a question right off the bat and take the ball and run with it. We've got a nice chunk of time. We've got about 8 minutes. Would you please just give me an overview of everything that you've seen happen since the 2020 election, which you were very active in afterwards? In fact, I filed an affidavit with you. Up to now, if you just give us an overview.
Well, certainly, and it still continues to unfold. We see the recent reports of what's been going on in Muskegon, the state police investigation in Muskegon of all the voter registration fraud there, the voter registration effort to have fictional fake names put on the voter roll. That's just the most recent. But going back in time, of course, to the lead up to the 2020 election, what was going on in Michigan was nothing less than a full-scale assault on the election process, trying to change the rules by judicial fiat in areas that favored the Democrats, trying to stack the deck in terms of voter registrations, as we're seeing in Muskegon, that were fraudulent, that were filed. Now, there's only one reason you would ever file a fraudulent voter registration form, and that is that you intend to follow it up with a fraudulent vote. So the question that we faced going back to 2020, many in Michigan were very concerned about how this election was being conducted. They wanted to make sure that judges didn't change the rules, but they did. They wanted to also make sure that ballots were fairly and honestly counted. And an important point to note is the distinction between a ballot and a vote. A ballot is a piece of paper with little ovals on it that somebody fills out. A vote is a ballot that has been completed by a voter who's legitimate, eligible to cast a vote, and has verified their identity to do so. This wasn't 2020, and the experience in Michigan was not new. It was something that has happened in past elections. We have had close presidential elections before, going all the way back to the 1850s and Tilden and Hayes and the post-Civil War issues that arose in that presidential election. We certainly remember, many of us, Bush v. Gore in 2000. The point is that when we conduct an election, we must have it conducted in a way that both the winning candidate and the losing candidate are confident that the results were fair, honest, the ballots legitimately were counted in a manner that assured that only lawful voters' ballots were counted. Because for every fraudulent ballot to be counted, that is a lawful voter who's disenfranchised. That's background. That's the background principles that were at work in 2020, and that's why.
I got a question regarding that Supreme Court decision. When the state of Texas and 14 other states joined in on that lawsuit, and then the Supreme Court basically said they had no standing. Can you kind of explain what that ruling was and why they felt there was no standing?
Well, that one, to avoid getting really down in the weeds on the technical side of it, basically arose out of Pennsylvania. There was concern, I mean, and again, in all the battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, that votes the election was not being conducted in an honest manner. And that's what the lawsuit was brought in the Supreme Court, seeking to change or to address that concern. The Supreme Court said there was not standing for those states to do that. In that sense, the Supreme Court dodged that question, never really got into the merits of the concerns that were raised about the manner in which the election was conducted in these battleground states. And the concern about that, and the reason the other states are concerned about it, say, for example, Texas, is because they have an interest as well. We're electing the president of the entire United States. If some states are changing the rules in a manner that allows them to unduly influence the outcome because they have conducted the election in a manner that does not comport with the rule of law, that does not follow established election procedures that are established by the legislature, not judges, then the other states say that's not a fair game. That deprives them of having a fair contest for the president.
Because we didn't run a legal election. We didn't follow our election laws, and we disenfranchised states that did. Is that the gist of it?
I'm sorry, if you could say that again, it cut out for a second.
We disenfranchised other states and deprived them of an electoral victory because we basically ignored our own election law and changed rules and procedures without the legislature. Is that the gist of it?
That is the gist of it, because it's not, I mean, and it's the voters, each state has an interest in making sure that that state's citizens are in a fair contest. And when another state tries to alter the rules to favor one particular political candidate over another, then that has the effect of disenfranchising the lawful votes of other citizens throughout the country and other states who played by the rules. And so the question, I'm sorry if you could say that again.
No, it's just unbelievable to me. And watching all of this unfold has been really, really sad. We've got 30 seconds. Would you like to make a plea to the audience to donate for the Electors Legal Fund?
Yes, absolutely. What I would say very quickly is you have 16 individuals, including several in their 80s, who are now facing a criminal indictment. This has nothing to do with legitimate, lawful criminal prosecution of any legitimate crime. I've read the indictment, I've read the affidavit in support of it, and it is frankly shocking to me. This is not America. This kind of conduct attempting to criminalize and literally throw in jail your political opponents is exactly the kind of thing third world countries, the Soviet Union, the Hitler era of corrupt governments was emblematic of that kind of corruption, that political corruption where they convert the law enforcement, the judicial branch, into a tool of one political party, and they seek to throw their opponents in jail. That is shocking.
Thor, I got to wrap it up now, but I thank you for your participation today, and I appreciate all of the things you have done to help bring out the truth and to support people that have become victims to this litigation.
And everyone watching should support these individuals. They absolutely should support them as generously as they're able.
So, again, if you can, scan that QR code on your screen, dial 1-888-403-8550. We are now going to go to a video that I think you're going to find very impressive. I think that a lot of these national figures that have come to the rescue here, who have wanted to be part of this, have done a lot to let all of the people know that are watching and the people around the country that we need to unify as a party. We need to support one another right now because we are under attack, and it is so important that we don't allow these lawsuits to bankrupt other fellows that really are good people, that had no criminal intent, that were literally just trying to protect your vote. I'm pretty sure that we are going to go to a video. If we aren't, it looks like we may be going to a live interview instead, and that's going to be Justice Gableman.
We don't have Justice Gableman.
Right now I see we are not ready to go or are ready to go, guys. Okay.
Will you guys, Tish, you gotta talk to me. If you can't do it, get somebody else. You're not communicating. I have no idea what's going on. Okay, where's Gableman?
Gableman has not joined. He was audio only. He's not replying to any of my messages.
What was that?
Gableman's not replying to any of the messages.
I'm under the impression that we have
Gableman from Wisconsin. Unfortunately, he is having some problems with his Zoom feed. We're working on it. Again, I apologize, folks. This is a group of volunteers. We are all doing the best that we can to help these electors, our fellow Republicans in the state of Michigan, who protected our vote, who are now dealing with just an incredible amount of adversity because of these lawsuits, and we need your help. Just to give you guys some good news, we've just crossed $4,000 in donations, which is promising, but it's nowhere near what we need. Our goal today is to raise $750,000 if we can, which is going to work out to approximately $50,000 per elector. We have one of the 16 that is not participating. She's got her own court-appointed attorney. So we're really raising the money for 15 electors. Don't want to confuse you with those numbers. But in the meantime, I know that we also have some different human interest videos that we'll be playing throughout the broadcast, which I think are really important because they let you know that these are just regular people. This could be your next door neighbor. This could be you. And, you know, they're definitely, we are just definitely watching this persecution take place, and the amount of devastation these legal fees is causing is really, really heartbreaking. So earlier I was talking about the national figures who are supporting this telecast, and truthfully, this next guest is one of the frontline conservative people that is always there for critical moments. She was in Georgia and had organized her own rally across the street from the jail where President Trump was booked and took that famous mugshot. And she's been to, you know, the President's Club in Westminster, New Jersey, as well as Mar-a-Lago many, many times, and considers the president a personal friend. And she's a journalist and former two-time congressional candidate. So with that, I'm hoping that we can start the interview with Laura Loomer. Rally. We're really, really grateful that she's here today to support this cause. Welcome, Laura Loomer.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for organizing this amazing telethon in support of Americans, brave American patriots who are being persecuted because they were brave enough and courageous enough to speak out against the crime of the century, which was the stolen election of 2020.
I know that you were there the day that President Trump was arrested and booked, or turned himself in and was booked. Can you give us like an overview of what your experience was and what you saw unfold?
Yeah, so I was actually the organizer of the rally in front of the Fulton County Jail for the same day that President Trump was arrested and had to turn himself in at the Fulton County Jail. And, you know, it's a really sad day in America, right? When we're watching the weaponization of government against one of the greatest presidents, or if not the greatest president our country has ever had. And there were a lot of people there supporting President Trump. Unfortunately, just moments before the rally was supposed to start, so it was supposed to start at 10 a.m. and at 9:45 a.m., you had police officers from the Fulton County Jail actually try to shut down the rally from taking place by putting up barricades in the road. And so you see that there is really an effort, not just on the federal level, but on the state level, by these radical leftist district attorneys and corrupt officials at the DOJ, or the Department of Injustice, as I like to call it, clamping down on free speech. And that's exactly what we're seeing unfold in Michigan, right? We're seeing the same thing happen in Georgia, where people who said that the election was stolen because it was stolen, and people who have provided evidence of voter fraud are now facing jail time and facing criminal charges and being accused of being false electors simply because they express their political and what is supposed to be constitutionally protected speech.
So I wanted to also ask you if you could maybe find it in yourself to maybe make a plea to our audience today in the telethon and explain to them why their contributions are so necessary in order to help defray the staggering expenses for these innocent people to defend themselves.
Well, look, it's really important that you support fellow Americans and Trump supporters that are under attack right now by the DOJ and by these corrupt, radical leftist district attorneys and law enforcement agencies that are specifically targeting people and trying to jail them and ruin them financially over their political views. And of course, it's two-tiered. So not just any political views, but they're pro-Trump views. And the legal fees that these individuals are going to face are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in the millions of dollars, because you're facing entities like the federal government and state governments that have unlimited resources.
And you were there when the president was released. Have you had a chance to talk to him, or do you know how he's doing, what his demeanor was that day?
Well, President Trump is really grateful for all of the support. And I was with President Trump in Bedminster in New Jersey at his club a couple weeks ago. And he's really grateful for everybody that is supporting him amid these witch hunts and these indictments. And so you see that President Trump is, a very generous and gracious person. He's always taking time out of his schedule to write notes to his supporters and to express his gratitude. And I can only imagine what he's going through right now. So I know that when I spent time with him at Bedminster, he kept on telling me over and over again just how grateful he was and how thankful he was for the people that are supporting him, which includes me, which is why I was meeting with him. But we just need to keep on standing strong for President Trump. Following the Georgia indictment and arrest in Fulton County, his campaign raised over $20 million. It's also really important that we remember that there's other people that have, remained loyal to President Trump who are also now suffering and being targeted as a result of these charges by corrupt officials and the weaponization of government. And we need to help them because they're not billionaires, right? They're not wealthy businessmen. And we need to make sure that everybody has a legal defense fund so that their life is not destroyed by this.
No, you're right. They're just average people like many volunteers who are passionate about their country. They love their president. They felt something was wrong with the election. They were duly elected in their congressional districts as electors and wanted to just be part of an alternate list of electors. If the pending litigation had been successful and the state would have flipped, you need to have a list of electors in the possession of the president of the Senate, or the state won't be counted. And these are not malicious people. These are not criminals. We've got an average age here in Michigan of these 16 people being in the mid-70s. And they've lost their ability to earn a living because they're retired. And this is hitting them hard financially. And on top of it, if they are put away, the one charge is a 14-year charge, the felony, they could literally be sentenced to death because they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison. So I don't know if you've got anything else that is new and developing that you want to maybe talk about today, but
no, that's exactly what they're trying to do to President Trump as well. They're trying to make him spend the rest of his life in prison. And I just encourage people to think, if you believe that the election was stolen and you know in your heart that the election was stolen, just know that this could be you. And just know that there could be a time in this country where you are also jailed and persecuted and falsely accused if you believe the election is stolen or you support President Trump. And so find it within yourself to reach into your pockets and try to donate as much as you can, because you would hope that people would do the same for you. And I plan on contributing as well.
Well, Laura, you're the real deal, and I can't thank you enough for your participation today. I wish you much luck in the future. And again, thank you for helping this great cause, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I hope to speak with you as well. And for people that want to follow my reports, in case you want to, get updates, or you want to see these Give, Send, Go links for these other individuals who need your help, you can go to my Twitter at Laura Loomer.
Welcome back, everybody. Laura Loomer has been really just such a warrior when it comes to fighting for conservative principles and being there to help discuss these election issues and going on national television and trying to put out real news. And as a journalist, she's very, very effective. And her last 2 runs for Congress were close but no cigar. But we are really, really sure that she's going to end up being in the U.S. Congress one day. Very talented lady. We want to appeal to your senses, not only from the standpoint of hearing a legal argument. We want to have you see some great personalities that are national figures. And we also want you to get to know the electors. It's real important that these people come to life to you. And one of the electors that was charged and has incurred just skyrocketing legal bills and could use your help. We're going to watch a human interest video and story about Marion Sheridan now. So with that, we'll watch her video.
About living like this, I've described it to people as being diagnosed with cancer. I think that's probably what it's like. You just don't know if you're going to survive it or not. So I've been trying to exercise a lot. I've been trying to incorporate running into my routines because I think that that helps. And of course, you know, it's like, I hate to say it, but you know, of course you turn much closer to God at times like this.
I know Marion to be one of the kindest, most considerate people that I know. She's eminently gracious. That's one of the things that stands out to me so much about her. She's just so gracious and kind and honest. I consider her a woman of integrity. My whole family just admires her.
And I find myself in a very difficult situation, not like anything I've ever experienced before. It's kind of strange because I'm just really kind of an everyday person. I have 5 children.
I have been amazed with how much time she spends away from her family, willing to give up her time and energy for the sake of the country. She's passionate about this country and desires to work to preserve it.
We feel very blessed, except, you know, we have this this very difficult thing that has entered into our lives. And it really is something that I think could happen to anyone. I started getting involved in, I've always been very interested in government and politics, and I probably got much more involved around 2009, where I helped found a Tea Party, and eventually in about 2014, I took over that Tea Party. Not anything that I ever thought I would be able to do because it's totally out of my comfort zone, but God leads us to where He knows we can be effective.
Yes.
To this day, I still lead that Tea Party. We get 100, 150 people. It's a very active group, great patriots. And from there, you know, I helped recruit a lot of precinct delegates. I decided that we needed to do something to actually change our party or push the Republican Party back more to its conservative principles. So I ran for grassroots vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party and got elected. This is actually my 3rd term. So I use that position to really help anybody that I can, whether it's promoting their events or if they, I've developed a lot of contacts, so if I can help them that way. It's just something that I really feel passionate about, and if God's given me those tools, that's what I'm doing with them. So I think because of those roles, I was honored with being elected as a elector for Donald Trump in 2020.
And something I think a lot of people don't know about Marion Sheridan is that she works as a volunteer. She has spent hours, I can't even tell you the time she has spent just as a volunteer to work to save the state, to save the country. It's an act of love. It's totally selfless. And she talks about the family she's got, the little ones. She goes, somebody asked me the other day, you know, why do you do this? Why don't you quit? Why do you work so hard? And she said, I felt like holding a picture of my family and saying, this is why I do it.
So my husband and I met in 1978 and we got married. Well, we got engaged after only 3 months. I would not recommend that to anyone, but luckily for us, it worked out, and that we have been married for 43 years. So he was a young policeman when we married.
We'll be starting in 2 minutes.
A little bit. He retired.
Newt is not in yet, so we're going to start with you and add him in when he joins.
You know, we've been very blessed with what we have, but you know, we're not people of abundance. And that's fine. You know, we've really, we really appreciated everything that we have, and we've been, you know, very frugal, and we had to be with raising 5 kids and making sure that they had what they needed. And all 5 kids ended up going through college. They're successful, and I think they're just well-balanced kids. And hopefully, we can do the same with the grandkids.
She has 13 grandchildren, 5 kids and her husband, and I've been with her times where it's like she hasn't seen him, and he's, it's been a while since they've been able to spend some quality time together, but she does it. And I have to tell you, I always think highly of her husband too, that he is willing to let her do that. That's a sacrifice for him. It's a sacrifice for the rest of that family, not just for Marianne. She's a grandmother and a mother and a wife, and they love her dearly. And the whole thing is very sad to me, that they all have to suffer and go through this. Completely, it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
I don't know what to say when I see these videos. They're heartbreaking to me because these are good people, and you get elected because of your involvement in a political party, and the district, the congressional district you're involved in, thinks so highly of you that they duly elect you as elector, and then your party calls you to come to the headquarters to sign an alternate list of electors in the event that the pending litigation for the president's campaign is successful, and somehow you're charged with 8 felony counts, up to 80 years in prison. It's just criminal to see these people suffer like this, and the financial strain is just devastating, and we are asking you to please find it in your heart to help them. Scan the QR code, call the 1-800 number if you'd like to talk to somebody, 888-403-8550. And, we've got a pretty remarkable guy on the line here. We've got Phil Klein, who Phil is a former state house representative. I think he's a former attorney general. And now he's currently a professor at Liberty University in Virginia. Phil Klein, welcome to the broadcast. How are you today? I don't know if we're back in a technical difficulty or not. We also have Newt Gingrich. I'm not seeing Newt yet, but he's over in Rome, and we're trying to put together this Zoom. Phil, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Phil, as a former attorney general, what do you think of these charges? What's your legal opinion?
Well, Matt, this is a further reflection that the far left has been captured by a Marxist ideology that believes that government has to have more power, more ability to guide the way we think, the way we speak, and the way we relate to one another. And that's what these charges are about. After one of the largest investigations in U.S. history by the United States Congress and the January 6th Committee, years of investigation by the Department of Justice, and then these local officials, an Attorney General and Fani Willis, a district attorney in Georgia. In all of the charges, there is not one claim, not one, that somebody promoted violence or acted in violence or threatened violence to another human being. Not anything like this. This is about speech. And this is about petitioning our government. This is people who are speaking, Matt, and saying government didn't do the job it's supposed to be doing. That's a fundamental right, and it's an important one, foundational to a free society. Right now, we're living at a time that if you question the government, you're on an enemy list. If you raise your voice, you will be censored. If you push forward, you will be threatened. And if you continue, you will be arrested. That's what the left is doing. This does not have support in law, nor is it supported in the Constitution. But when they have the power to define the law, then what the law's purpose is makes no difference. And these people are under dire threat from a government that's been weaponized.
It's unbelievable. We have Newt Gingrich from Rome, I believe, Italy, on the line now in the broadcast. Newt, you're one of these people that really has become so legendary, you barely need an introduction. But I mean, former Speaker of the House, balanced the budget 4 consecutive years, took out a $400 billion deficit, and then went on to run for president. The books you've authored and your wife Callista's involvement with the Vatican, it's just been unbelievable. What a life. And thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Well, thank you. And look, it's a little less exotic, but I'm actually in Arlington, Virginia. But I did have a wonderful time for 3.5 years while Callista served as the ambassador to the Holy See. I think this is a particularly important topic because it's one thing to after Donald J. Trump, who has been president, who's a billionaire, and who can fight for himself. But what's happened is the left has decided to engage in lawfare, where they use the law as a weapon. It's replacing the rule of law with the rule of power. It's exactly what places like Nicaragua or Cuba or Venezuela do. And it is terrifying, particularly, I think, in the case of Michigan, where I believe there's an 81-year-old woman who's one of the people being charged. Charged for what? She did exactly what Al Gore's electors did. She did what electors did in Hawaii in 1960. She actually did what the chairman of the January 6th committee did in Mississippi at one point. The fact is, historically, there have been many alternative electors. Historically, there have been many people saying the elections weren't real. It turned out, for example, in Georgia, where there's a particularly egregious case against Trump, that the district attorney managed to ignore the fact that her party's candidate, Stacey Abrams, on 30 different occasions, 30 different occasions, denied that, in fact, Governor Kemp had won. That apparently wasn't a problem because election denial apparently only occurs if you're a Republican. And this idea of false electors is itself a good example of language warfare. The fact is, having an alternative election, or an alternative elector rather, in a challenged election is totally legal, is not in any way a sign of undermining the law, is an act of complying with the law and ensuring that if in fact there's a recount, that you have electors who are available, who are legitimate. This is a grotesque prostitution of the American legal system. It is an enormous danger to the very freedoms that have made us historically American. And I think it's, I'm with Phil Klein in the sense that this is vital, but it doesn't fit the normal donor patterns. It doesn't fit, people get excited by a campaign. Yet this is, in many ways, fundamental to our ability to have campaigns. It's fundamental to our ability to have freedom. And I think to the degree that we allow the left, by just sheer momentum of using government resources to wear out and exhaust people, not only is it totally an injustice to the people being charged, but it's also an injustice to everyday citizens and suggests to them, you had better stay out of politics if you're a conservative, because you're going to be legally at risk and the power of the government may come after you if you engage in your legitimate rights as a citizen. So I think this is a huge deal. I am delighted that Phil has worked so hard to put it together. And I want all of you to know that I think this is very much worth your time and very much worth your talking to others about it.
Well, thank you, Newt. One of the things that I was in a conversation with Eric Cardell about, and I would love your take on it, is he believes that right from the very start here, this Electoral College Vote Act is unconstitutional, and that the way that they even count the electoral votes is unconstitutional, and the idea that they're bringing charges up on an unconstitutional law is ridiculous.
Well, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a historian by training, so I can't comment on the legality per se. But what I will say is that the damage being done to normal, everyday people, both the level of fear that they have to live in, the amount of money they're going to have to raise, the impact of all this is, even if the Supreme Court intervenes and says these are all nonsense and they have to, they're false charges. The Attorney General of Michigan is not going to pay any price. The fact is, these folks, and the same thing's true for the Justice Department lawyers or for the district attorney in New York or the district attorney in Atlanta. These are people using the power of the state, the money of the American people, in order to, in effect, punish innocent people whose primary crime, if it's a crime, was to exercise their right as a citizen. So I think this whole thing is extraordinarily dangerous. And I think the gravest threat to our constitutional system since the Civil War.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And even from the standpoint of when these people are done with all of this, they can't come forward and reclaim any of these legal fees. So in a sense, the process is the punishment.
That's right. I mean, look, they're sending a chilling signal to everyone who would like to run for office, everyone who would like to be active in supporting campaigns. And it's a signal that says you may be putting yourself legally at risk if you're a Republican or a conservative. Now, of course, if you're a liberal Democrat, there is no risk because under no circumstance will the current corrupt weaponized system come after you. And that creates a remarkable imbalance of energy and of donations and ultimately cripples freedom. It's the kind of thing you see in a place like Nicaragua or Venezuela, but you've never seen it in America before. I find it really frightening.
Would I be able to impose upon you, Newt, before we wrap up and ask you to reach out to the audience with a plea as to why it's important they donate?
Look, if we don't preserve the freedom that we have as Americans, then donating to elections is in the end not going to be worth anything. And the left has figured out how to use the law as a system of warfare. And they deliberately are trying to break us in an area that we're not used to. We're not the party of trial lawyers. We're not the party of litigation. And I think we don't have the kind of law school professors who believe in destroying the system. And so I think we're at a significant disadvantage. Now, we can respond, we can learn, we can be involved, and for relatively modest amounts of money, I think we can change history and break up this entire strategy. But I do think without that kind of resources, people like Phil Klein are not going to be able to successfully stand up to the machine. And we desperately need the help of people who care enough about America to reach a little deeper into their pocket and to try to be helpful. So I'm delighted to be able to be part of this because I do think it's a very important step towards preserving freedom in America.
Just on a side note, any predictions about the 2024 race and what you see unfolding?
Well, look, I think it's all going to be a legal brawl. I mean, the next phase is going to be an effort by Democratic secretaries of state and Democratic controlled counties to literally block Trump from even being on the ballot. So this is not going to go away. This fight inside the legal system is as important as the fight in the political system. And you're going to see this. I tell people this is not a political year. This is a historic year. We haven't seen anything like this level of threat since 1859 and 1860. And I think it's a really dangerous threat at every level. And we're going to have to be militant. We're going to have to be active. And we're going to have the courage to stand up and fight.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Newt.
Thank
it was
you.
exceptionally generous of you to be here. God bless. And
thank you for taking leadership and for pursuing this. I'll just say one in closing. It is really, really important.
And Phil, I just want to wish you luck in your pending litigation. I know that you, as a former Attorney General and now a professor of law, have all of the expertise that you need to be successful. I'm hoping that our judicial system gives you a fair shake, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you. And as the speaker said, if we act together beyond our fear, we can prevail. We have to act on principle and not fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, folks, again, here's two heavy hitters nationally that have found the time to be here because they think this is so important. I mean, ultimately, if we can all start coming together and protecting one another legally, we may disrupt and discourage these frivolous prosecutions. So we need to come together and we need to help these people. If you want to go to givesendgo.com/Michigan Electors, or you want to make a phone call to our call center, 888-403-8550. There's a QR code on your screen. You can just hold your smartphone up to it, and that'll take you right to the donate page. The important thing is that you donate now. I mean, the mission here is to help defray these crippling expenses, and we're asking you to participate in that. And it's critically important. So I know that throughout the day, we're going to be making pleas to you. We're going to be bringing in national figures. We're going to try and entertain you at some points. We're going to try and move you with videos of the electors. And we're going to try and educate you by bringing in experts that are the best in their field legally so that you can understand what's really going on here. We have a video now that we'd like to have you guys enjoy, and it's coming up right now.
The day-to-day stress about living like this, I've described it to people as being diagnosed with cancer. I think that's probably what it's like. You just don't know if you're going to survive it or not. But you know, of course, you turn much closer to God at times like this.
I feel strong spiritually. I spend a ton of time in prayer. I wake up in the middle of the night and I do have fear. But I mean, that's not new. You know, I've had that before. I try to spend more time in prayer, more time leaning on God's word. And there are so many people that are praying for us. So, you know, it's taken a toll. It's taken a toll on me more where I worry about other people who care about me. I worry about my husband the most because he feels bad about it and he's worried for me. I know he is. And so that hurts me. I feel bad that my kids have to worry and be concerned. I'm happy that I raised 3 kids that are that make light of a lot of things and that they're also very prayerful. You know, I worry about finances. It's taken a toll on us that way, but I know that that's part of the plan. People a lot smarter than me keep telling me that the process is the punishment. And when somebody weaponizes a legal system against people, that the process that they put you through really is the punishment that they envision. And I see.
Well, in these conditions, you find out who your friends truly are. You find out who in the family is willing to bear the brunt with you. And my wife is bearing the brunt. It's very hard on her. It's very harsh on her. It's a very dystopian disillusionment when you're confronted with, the wrongs of the state targeting you. And the wrongs of the state is what we are confronting. We will persevere. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's a tedious journey, and it's a journey, unfortunately, we have to stand up tall to confront, and that's what we're doing. It's unsettling since this has become public. The last 10 days of August, we've done nothing but work on every day for the solution. And the solution will be, by God's grace, where we will persevere.
Well, you just got to keep a really positive attitude. And I always kind of try to look on the bright side of things. And I just have this feeling like God never puts anything in your way that he thinks that you can't handle. So obviously, God thinks that I can handle this. And I know in my heart, God has my back, and if God has your back, that's all you need.
Again, if this doesn't move you to donate, I really don't know what more we can do. These are regular people like you and I, and this could be you. We've got a real treat ahead of us coming to us from the West Coast area. Sam Sorba is an absolute committed person to education reform and homeschooling, and has dedicated a lot of herself outside of her really successful acting career. You may recall the series Hercules. She was involved in that and did a great job. And she's also happens to be very beautiful. So Sam Sorbo, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And a quick correction, although it's entirely not your fault. We did move from the state of California a while ago to the great state of Florida. We call it the free state of Florida. But I happen to be coming from Paris today. That's how committed I am to this event and this movement. I'm actually visiting in Paris. What I'm doing is called homeschooling on steroids. I'm here with my daughter, and she is a senior in high school, and this is sort of a study abroad program for her.
That's unbelievable. What an incredible thing. I love Florida too. I happened to went through there, and I understand why you've selected it as a state to live in, because it is a free state. And what a treat for your daughter to be able to matriculate through some classes and education in Paris. That's wonderful. So I know that you feel that there's a great injustice going on here. These people are just regular, everyday people that are being charged with felonies. In the case of the Michigan electors, there's 8 felony counts with a total of 80 years of imprisonment. Do you want to just weigh in on this and tell us where you're at and what you think about it all?
Well, these electors stepped outside the box. They colored outside the lines, if you will. And of course, my whole platform or my whole mission field these days is to get children out of the schools. We were blessed that these individuals decided to stand up for the truth, and we ought to be supporting them, because what happens in our schools is children are simply taught to conform. And so the assumption of the opponents, the opposition, was that these people would simply toe the line. They would do what they were told to do, that they were told to do without any sort of backup, and that they wouldn't step outside the lines. And I'm glad that they did. But now, of course, they're bearing the brunt of the anger of the opposition. And it's a very sad thing, but they're just going to have to stand strong. And, you know, we live in amazing times, and we live in some difficult times, and this is just part of that.
Well, having the support of national figures like you really helps this cause, because people understand how large the support is for this. We just got done speaking with Newt Gingrich, and we've got some other national figures that are coming onto the broadcast, because they feel strongly that as a party we need to start unifying. We need to start helping one another and supporting one another, and lose the every man for himself type of feeling that's been going on as part of the divisiveness that the media has been promoting and encouraging.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think it's important that people rally behind these individuals and support them, and show the opposition that there is support, and that people do believe that these individuals did the right thing. And it's very important. I'm sure that on the day, it was a very difficult decision for these individuals to make. It is difficult to stand for truth when the whole world seemingly the whole world has accepted a lie. But stand for truth we must. We must stand for truth. And that's why I endeavor to empower parents to take their children out of the schools where the children are trained simply to conform and not question, and therefore disregard the truth. I mean, there's so many lies that are being taught these young children who are super impressionable. As we know, they're extraordinarily vulnerable, which is why the enemy has moved into the schools. It's to get the children before they know any better. And you know, one of the things, and it's funny because Frank Zappa had a quote that came over on Instagram again today, and I reposted it. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see it today. And he said the schools basically just train the children to conform. It eliminates creativity, but more than that, it eliminates thought. They basically kill the desire to do anything outside the norm, which would be creative, and they kill the desire for truth. They do not teach discernment. One of his main points was that children are not taught discernment between right and wrong, truth or lies. And that's what we're faced with today is You know, the opposition is made up of a bunch of zombies who believe lies, and they don't even question them.
It's so true.
So
and it
if
takes
if
courage.
we want the truth to stand, then we're going to have to start standing up for it.
No, you're right. And what you're doing is about promoting the truth, and it's about people taking control of their lives and their family and making sure that their children are taught the truth and that they don't go around believing that there's 27 other genders and all of the other nonsense that's being
In fact,
promoted.
I would say to you that teaching your child discernment of truth is more important than any math class, any science class, any social studies. Teaching your child to discern truth is more important than any of the academics. Teaching them virtue is more important than any of the academics. And yet, like sheep, because we've all been conditioned, we send our children to school. We've been conditioned to do so. We ourselves are afraid to step outside the box and do it ourselves because they've conditioned us, they've taught us to believe it's too complicated, it's too difficult. But look at them now. Look what's happening in the schools. And, you know, we're all aware of, I mean, go follow my Twitter feed. The things that I post about what is happening in the schools today. And every time I post, basically, here's a reason to homeschool. Here's another reason to homeschool. Look at this. This is a great reason to homeschool, because what you think you're signing up for in the schools is not what you're going to get. You're going to get something completely different. You're going to get handed back a child who does not respect you and doesn't think for himself either.
Well, I'm going to ask you one final question here. Could you take them a moment and just make a plea out to the audience that's participating today as to why it matters that they donate and why it's significant that we don't allow the weaponization of the legal system to bankrupt regular people to basically quiet our voices?
Yeah, well, I mean, very well said. That's exactly what they're doing. And so they will bring the fight as long as they can, and they are extraordinarily well funded. And we also must be well funded, and that's why you should donate, is because these individuals are not wealthy individuals. They took a stand for the truth on behalf of you, and now you're called to take a stand on behalf of them. And so I would urge everyone to donate to help these people battle in the courts, which is where this is going to play out. And you know, we've got a lot of work to do. So dial, I don't know how people are donating, but press that button or click that link or whatever it is and get the job done, and know that you're doing a good deed for a fellow individual in need.
Our next guest is Thank you so much, Sam Sorbo. Have a great time in Paris.
Thank you. Au revoir.
Au revoir. All right. We got some good news here. We literally have just gone over $25,000. That's a really big moment, and it's a big number. And we're starting to build a little momentum 1.5 hours into the broadcast. We've got quite a ways to go. So we got 9.5 hours left. And please don't wait till the last minute to make your donation. Let's get this thing over the top. And more important, I really want you to share this on your social media. I want you to go out and to use your Twitter account, and while you're at it, while you're posting on Twitter, the link to the telethon on Rumble, gatewaypundit.com, or find the Gateway Pundit Rumble channel, or Michael Lindell TV, or if you go to any of those sources, you can stream this live. You can post that link. You can post the Give, Send, Go link. And that would be a huge help. And on Twitter, when you do it, if you reference maybe a couple of different celebrities that you have following you, that these celebrities may repost, and we can make this thing go viral, but it cannot happen without you. So I'm begging you people to please take the initiative, pretend that this is your family that this is happening to, and understand the urgency here. So I'm asking you to take a moment, go online, post on whatever social media you use, and make it as powerful as possible and encourage people. I know they're at work. I know it's the first day back from school. I know all of these things, but at the same time, we have got a dire situation, and the sense of urgency couldn't wait. And we're here today making a plea to all of you that you participate and that you promote. All right? Now, we've got an incredible interview coming up with Patrick Kolbeck. He is a patriot in Michigan. I would classify him as an election integrity expert. And I think at any time you hear his point of view on this, you know that it can be, you can count on it because he does his homework and it's based in fact. So our next guest is a published author, former assistant caucus chair of the Michigan State Senate, term limited out state senator, former candidate for governor of the state of Michigan, and an election integrity expert. And just a real privilege to have Patrick Kolbeck join us today. Pat, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm a little upset with our justice system right now, particularly our Attorney General, Dana Nessel. But other than that, everything's going good.
So let me know, since you've touched on that right off the bat, what your opinions are and say anything that you feel in your heart that needs to be said.
Well, obviously, these charges against the 16 Republican electors are, are not easy to deal with from perspective of the people that are being named in these suits, because this is scary stuff and it's designed to intimidate them. But the good news associated with the filing of these charges by Dana Nessel is that in order for her charges to have weight in a court of law, she has to address something that nobody has wanted to address yet, and that is whether or not the 2020 election was indeed lawfully certified. And I can tell you, the opportunity here, the silver lining with this filing here, is the fact that now we have an opportunity in a trial by jury to actually make our claims and make our evidence known regarding the 2020 election. And I can tell you, just off the face of it, we have ample evidence that the 2020 election was not lawfully certified. And we can start off with the fact that our chief election official in the state, Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State, has been found in violation of the law in 5 separate court cases. Now, these are related to election-related guidelines that she's provided. So can you say that it's a lawfully certified election? Well, you can't say it's a lawfully conducted election, for sure. And then I'm also a resident of Wayne County. I happened to be there during the Wayne County Board of Canvassers meeting in the wake of the 2020 election. I saw Bill Hartman and Monica Palmer, who were our State Board of Canvasser representatives from the Republican Party in Wayne County, vote no on certification. They were later pulled into a back room, told that they would be able to get an audit associated with the election, and so they voted a conditional yes on certification after that. And then when that was made public, Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who would be required to conduct that audit, said, we're not going to go off and do an audit on the way that they want us to do an audit. And so promptly, Monica and Bill came back and said, no, we're going to vote no then on certification. Well, the Democrats, of course, said, you can't change your mind on certification vote. Looking at the fact that we have an unlawful Secretary of State and that Wayne County, where there were a total of 878,102 ballots cast, 597,170 were for Biden, 264,553 were for Trump. According to their records, that's about a 332,617 vote difference. That's greater than the 154,188 vote difference in the state of Michigan that was awarded to Joe Biden, giving him this quote unquote 16 electors. So if you add all that up, what it amounts to is that the people who submitted fraudulent electors were the Democrats, not the Republicans.
Do you see any problem with that based on the history of other elections where alternates have been chosen and sent in?
No, 1960s in Hawaii, they did the same thing. There were no charges pressed against the Democrat Hawaiian electors from Hawaii. So no, this is, I hate to use the expression here, but trumped up charges. This is done for political purposes, and it's part of an overall effort to impugn anybody who questions the results of the 2020 election.
The other question is that if the Senate had refused to vote on any electors because there was problems with election law being broken, would that have been possible?
They could have raised a fuss there because once again, I mean, under that Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, all the authority for the conduct of those elections is actually under the purview of the legislature. So they could have stood up and said, hey guys, we're going to invoke our U.S. constitutional authority. We know what laws have been passed to guide this process in the past, but you know what? In this case, you know, the legislature
we
has
had an illegal election.
Authority. Yeah, right. There was conducted a legal election, and we're going to sit there and raise our hand and say, "Knock it off, guys! This is something that we need to be that needs to be addressed." And they didn't do that.
If any of the states in question had the courage to do that, it would have prevented this from reoccurring. And now we're in a place where we've got Prop 2 passed, and they've changed the rules again.
You hit the nail on the head. Courage. None of these officials had the courage to do what was necessary. They were all being told in their caucus that, no, if you go off and question the results, it can be riot in the streets. Remember what happened in the summer of 2020?
Yes.
They once again, intimidation tactics, bully tactics. They tried to get the message across that if you questioned the results of the election in any way, shape, or form, and you know, you were a poll challenger with me out there, we all witnessed the intimidation that was happening to poll challengers when they were questioning basic election processes out at the TCS Center in Detroit.
The Constitution is saying that the state legislature conducts the election, and yet you're telling me that, you know, the legislature never votes to certify the vote. They never vote to certify the election. They never even vote to seat the electors. There's a ceremony that takes place in the Capitol, but that's evidently signed off on by the governor. So has the legislature over time literally taken their own authority away from themselves?
What you'll see over time is that the legislature has passed bills and legislation and put in place legislation that governs the conduct of those procedures. So the legislature did issue their voice. They issued their voice by saying, here's the procedure or process by which we're going to the process that we're going to follow when it comes to the certification of the election. So in other words, they're not abrogating their responsibility, but on the other hand, it doesn't mean that they have to be the ones that vote on whether or not the results should be certified or not.
Final question. Would you please take a moment to make a plea to our audience to find it in their hearts to reach into their wallets and help these people, and why?
Oh, absolutely. Guys, this is for all the marbles in our country. This gets to the heart of whether or not we are going to have a constitutional republic or a banana republic. Right now, our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, is treating us like this is a banana republic. And if you want to restore the promise of America right now, this is where the battle is being fought. It's in the courtroom. It's with these 16 electors, and they need financial support. They can't prevail on this without financial support. Unfortunately, it costs money to conduct legal defense, and in this case, it's going to take a lot to do an effective job of defending these 16 electors. So please find it in your heart to donate and support this initiative. And guys, they need to win, and the way that they are going to win is with your support.
Senator Patrick Kolbach, thank you so much for joining our broadcast today and for your support of these electors.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
And now we're going to go directly to national figure and hero, over 5 million social media followers. This gentleman was a former entertainment attorney and has become a conservative voice of America. You may know him as DC Drano. Rogan, welcome to the program. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
So how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. And I'm going to just give you the ball and let you run with it. Give me your take on all of these indictments that are going on around the country and specifically what's happening in Michigan.
I think it's very clear what's happening. And this is an attack on the ability to verify election integrity. They're trying to criminalize anyone that takes a serious approach at protesting, investigating, or auditing our elections. And what Dana Nessel is doing as Attorney General in Michigan is abhorrent and, frankly, quite corrupt, because what we are seeing recently with the Muskegon ballot fraud, I don't know if you guys have discussed that already, but I helped amplify that once Gateway Pundit broke the story. I talked about it on the War Room podcast, and 8 to 10,000 mostly fraudulent ballot registrations dropped off in Muskegon, which is about a town of, I think, 35,000 people. Now imagine what's happening in Detroit. Imagine what's happening in Lansing. Imagine what's happening all over Michigan. I think that Michigan elections are extremely corrupt, and Dana Nessel and Greta, they are working to silence anyone trying to expose it or fix it.
Well, you know, the thing that is so disheartening is this lawfare that has started pretty much in the last 3 years after the election has weaponized the legal system. And many people have been saying all day that the punishment is the process, that coming up with the money to defend yourself and what it does to your family and to your life. And then finally, even if it gets tossed out of court, no harm, no foul to them. It didn't cost them anything, and they've devastated you. And that's why we are so much asking people to post this on their social media, help this thing go viral. We got to raise money so that these people aren't bankrupted. What do you feel about it?
That's exactly the phrase that I would use. The process is the punishment. And that's what they've done to that's what they're doing to President Trump. That's what they've done to almost all of his senior officials. And that's what they're doing to high-level Republican officials. It's the weaponization of government against political opposition. It's something that we've never seen before in this country. And you're right. Once you go through this process, you'll probably be vindicated on appeal. But the financial stress and the psychological stress and the reputational damage done is what they care about inflicting. And so with the government, you have basically unlimited resources. And that's why this telethon is so important. That's why I agreed to help contribute, is because we need to help raise money for these people so that they are not bearing the costs alone, because they were doing a public service. They were fighting an immeasurable evil that is taking over this country, and they stood strong. They stood in the breach, and the very least that we can do as fellow patriots is to support them, because they're not just going after them, they're coming after all of us. And if we don't stop it at the breach, if we don't stop it at the tip of the spear, the bully is only going to get more emboldened.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. One question that a couple of people had asked in studio, and I thought it was kind of a great question. You're a social media expert. So many of us have been shadow banned. So many of us have lost followers. How have you managed to stay the course and build up to 5 million followers? Is there any advice you can give somebody that's got a good following on what they can do to promote their page and to get their message out there?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I am someone just like everyone else. I started with 0 followers, and I did it kind of on the side when I was a corporate attorney out in California before I moved to Florida for freedom back in 2017. But my one piece of advice, I, of course, am affected by the shadow bans and the censorship just like everybody else, especially on Facebook and Instagram. A lot of the fact checkers, anything I do to criticize Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, if it goes viral, I'll get fact checked. Gas prices weren't actually $2.19 when Trump left office. They were $2.16. They'll get you on anything, any nuance, and then they shadow ban your account. So I haven't been able to grow on Instagram and well over a year. On Twitter, I was banned for 2 years. And I'm actually in a lawsuit in the Supreme Court against Twitter in the state of California because the government told Twitter to ban me, and we got the email proving it. So I am affected by this stuff just as much as everybody else. But here's what I will say. Here are my 3 or 4 pieces of advice. The first is try to stay within the community guidelines, understand them, because as much as they're unfair and unjust, that is the battlefield that we have today. So that's the first thing. The second thing is be genuine in your analysis, be honest with your people, admit when you make mistakes. And the third thing is try and touch upon viral news topics, things that are hot, things that are current. The news on social media, you get like 2 to 4 hours before it's kind of an old story. I don't watch Fox News anymore for a lot of reasons, but I remember seeing Fox News back years ago. I'm like, well, we already talked about that 8 hours ago, so the news is kind of slower. Social media is very fast. Fourth thing is I would say really focus on Twitter and Truth Social. Those are the most free speech, positive platforms where you can grow a good following. And the fifth thing is be creative, do something different. Have the courage to put your voice out there, try different tactics, try different video styles, and because you never know what's going to click. And, like that Oliver Anthony guy that did the song, Richmond, North of Richmond. I mean, he put himself out there, he gave it a shot, and it went viral, and that can happen to anyone. So put your voice out there and don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in within the guidelines as much as you can.
Thank you. Speaking of which, going viral, we're asking everybody that can post this on their social media, post the link to gatewaypundit.com so that people can find donation links and find the actual streaming channel on Rumble. I thank you so much for being here today with us. I'd like to ask you to make a quick plea to the audience to donate.
Yes, like I said, these people that are under the boot of a tyrannical government led by Dana Nessel and the Biden DOJ for so many others, they fought for us. The very least that we can do is support them in this time, because we are in one of the greatest battles in our country's history to restore the rule of law, the Constitution, and to restore election integrity. If we don't have free and fair elections, we don't have a country. And the only way we do that is by standing up and fighting the election fraud. That is what these electors did. They were fully constitutional in what they did. It has been done before. It will be done again. The Democrats have done it. So they should not be punished for something that is legal, constitutional, and a patriotic duty to stand up against fraud. And what we saw in Muskegon only verifies that these people were right. So I hope that people out there open up their wallets and send what they can, because these lawyers, they're valuable and important, but they aren't cheap. So thank you all for being here, and God bless.
How about a quick plug so people can hear you?
Yeah, I'm Rogan O'Hanley. I run DC Drano on all the platforms, and I'm just a regular guy that saw tyranny infecting our country and decided to leave everything behind and fight it full time. And if I can, I only had a couple hundred followers on Instagram for years, just posting random pictures, and I started to post memes and tweets. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, I promise. So put your voice out there and join this fight.
Thanks again. God bless. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Supporting our
You too.
efforts here today. Coming in hour 3, we have special guest Steve Bannon coming up and Pastor Don Eason. So there's a lot coming up, folks, and we are now at the noon hour. We've been on the air for 2 hours. We've got 9 more to go. So we need your support. We need your help. More important, we need you to promote what's going on here. We don't have the ability to get the reach that we can get if we all join together and we post this on Twitter and we post this on Facebook and Instagram and all of the other social media sites. Email your friends, tell them, hey, look, check this broadcast out. It's people's lunch hour right now. It's a great opportunity to do that. If you find it in your heart that you could help these people, these legal bills are just devastating, and we're doing what we can to basically raise money for them and to help defray their legal expenses. You can go to givesendgo.com/Michigan Elector, or you can go to the QR code that's on your screen and basically scan that with your phone. You can post it on your social media. You can also call in if you want to talk to one of our people in the call center. We've got an old school call center, 888-403-8550. And these different ways that you can donate and that you can communicate are really, really important to this process. We're over $25,000 at this point, 2 hours in, and it's really important that you participate, and we appreciate you hanging in there with us. We're a group of volunteers that absolutely are just learning this as we go. We're lucky to have a couple professionals in the command center, but as far as the rest of us are concerned, we're just regular, everyday people. And now we're going to cut to a live interview. And hi, I'm Matthew Seeley.
Nice to meet you, Matt.
Nice to meet
Patrice Johnson. We've met before, actually.
Absolutely. I just, as I said it, I'm like, that's Patrice Johnson. How are you today?
Fine. Very well. Thank you.
Should we take a seat? Let me.
Well, maybe.
I think you're already set. That's the right spot for your bar stool there.
All right.
Patrice, I know that you've been on the front lines for a long time, helping people, volunteering. I know you know a lot of the electors. Why don't you give the audience, you can just speak out to them, your overview of what you've experienced and your passionate plea about what's going on now.
Well, yeah, I haven't really been involved with politics except for after the 2020 election. And it's been a real roller coaster ride because as soon as you think you figured something out, more stuff happens. But the electors have really suffered. Some of these people are over 80 years old and they could spend 15 to 20, 30 years in prison for a crime that really isn't a crime according to any laws. So it's very intimidating and it's very unjust. So it's my pleasure to be here to ask people to help support these poor electors they were doing their job, they were doing their duty, and they weren't the first to do it either, Matt.
Right.
It's been done in Hawaii, it's been done with other electors. So this wasn't unprecedented at all. So they had good reason to think that the election might be overturned, and if it were, they had to be ready or they wouldn't be able to cast their votes.
You know, I was reading historically, you know, when Hayes was running against Tillman, and, you know, we're talking in the 1800s here. Basically, there were 3 states that filed separate electors because the election was in contention in those 3 states. And then you go to 1960 in Hawaii, where no one was declared the winner because there was a recount going on. It was so close between Nixon and Kennedy, 1/2 of a percentage point. So not only did the Democrats and the Republicans, the Independent Party also all filed lists of electors, and no one was in any trouble. And then in Bush-Gore 2000, Al Gore down in Florida said, hey, we better make sure that we've got electors in place in the event that the state's overturned. Well, it wasn't necessary because on December 11th, the Supreme Court came back and threw out the Texas case. There was still other litigation, but that was the main one. And then on the 14th, they were able to submit the electors for Bush. In between those 2 dates, Al Gore basically backed out of the process. So, and in every case, no one's ever been charged before. This is uncharted water. Do you have any news or anything you want to share with us?
Well, just that we've been, in Michigan Fair Elections, we've been following the Muskegon case. And as Gateway Pundit and Patty McMurray have been so thoroughly following it, what happened there was that the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, had their chief investigators involved in this investigation. And at the header of every document from the Muskegon police and the state police it said voter fraud. And there was justifiable information to suspect voter fraud, but neither the Secretary of State nor the Attorney General decided to notify anyone of this. So the clerks weren't notified, the legislature wasn't notified, to be on the lookout, just to be on the lookout even. So this seems like they knew there was something going on.
And what was that something?
The something was that there was a highly suspicious activity in Muskegon where there were 10,000 to 12,000 ballots dropped, or ballot applications, registration forms dropped off, and the clerk there identified, just sampling, 40 or more that were immediately disqualified. Some were, and then the Muskegon police started to investigate. They were going door to door, finding that people didn't live there. Some were parking lots, addresses. And so then, as they were expanding this, other states they expanded to 5 other cities within Michigan. And then it went out state even, to 20 other states they were finding this voter registration ring.
So how did these applications or registration requests, how did they get received?
Well, in this case, a person dropped them off to the clerk's office.
Wow.
And she was suspicious because I think they were 10 to 12,000 registrations dropped off in a population size of 25,000 total. So had it been a larger area, maybe the clerk wouldn't have been so surprised. But here, it was very surprising. So she decided to look into it. And my understanding is, as she was talking to the police and reporting it, they were there, if I'm correct anyway, and the person came back in again with another batch. And that's how they they interviewed her. And
so she was brought in, the person that was dropping these off, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any other further information as to who this person was or what the connection was to this group of registrations?
Well, she was connected to a group called GBI Strategies, which is, interestingly, it's funded through, I believe it's called Black PAC, and that is funded through America Votes, which is funded through Arabella Advisors. So there's a chain of, an alleged chain of 990s. There's a chain of 990s that indicate that this was well funded. And then Patty and Jim Hoft and Ben Wetmore have found that they believe there's a connection even to the Democrat Party, and that they're sharing the same address in Lansing.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. Going forward, is there any more possibility that a prosecutor or anybody will pick this up and do anything with it, or do you know where it stands?
Well, that's an interesting question, Matt, because the investigation went on for 2 years, and then in I think it was March of 2021, or May, the state police turned it over to the FBI because it was deemed interstate. Other states were involved.
Right.
And messing with voter registrations is a felony at the federal level. So, but then it appeared to kind of go quiet. And I think a state trooper told one of our supporters about the situation that had just disappeared. So Keith said, well, how do we find out more about this? And this trooper said, well, just do a FOIA, just ask. And so Keith submitted a FOIA and got all these documents, which he then turned over to other people. And so it came to light through this process of FOIA and one person asking a question.
You know, it's crazy. I think I just read somewhere that a lot of the correspondences from these outside groups to our government officials were sent to them in Greek and other foreign languages, so that when a FOIA request is made, none of the words match. And unless you hit translate on the document, you don't know what it says.
Well, that's news to me, man.
Yeah.
That's a new way of avoiding FOIAs.
I was like, wow, man, yeah, that's like...
That's creative.
That's 3D chess there. So, Patrice, I'd like to ask you to look into the camera and make a plea to our audience. Tell them why this is important and why these electors need their help.
Well, this is really very important that people support these electors because each elector now has to have their own defense attorney, a criminal defense attorney. Prior to this, Eric Cardall had been defending them on a litigative basis. But now, because of the charges, the felony charges, these folks are all having to pay for criminal attorneys, criminal attorneys.
Right.
Which is, it's an enormous expense for every individual that was just doing their duty. These are just normal, regular American Michigan citizens that were doing their patriotic duty, and now they're undergoing enormous stress. So I think it'd be wonderful if people could help. Thank you.
Yeah, well put. And the thing is not only can you help financially, you can help promote what we're doing by sharing it on your social media. Go on Twitter, tag a bunch of important national names so that hopefully one of them sees it and retweets it for you. Go on your Facebook groups that you're a part of and post on them. Post in your own social media sites, and let's help promote this thing, because the only way that it's ever going to go viral is if we all take a moment out of our day and do the right thing. The telethon can be found at gatewaypundit.com or the Gateway Pundit Rumble channel. And when you go to gatewaypundit.com, not only is there a link to the Rumble channel, there's a link to being able to donate. We've got a QR code on your screen right now. So if you want to hold your phone right up to your screen and you can scan that QR code, it'll take you right to the donate. If you want to talk to a live human being, which no one gets to do anymore, dial 1-888-403-8550. We've got some great ladies that are in the call center that have driven far and wide to be here to donate. We've got people from the Muskegon area, we've got people from the Saginaw area, we've got people from the Flint area, we've got people from all over the state who feel so strongly about this cause that they took time out of their lives to drive down and to be here first thing in the morning to take your call. So give them a call and say hi, and even if it's $5, it's just every little bit helps, and every little bit is going to make a difference. And more than anything, the support means so much to these people that are really going through a personal hell right now. They're afraid. The unknown is terrifying, and they are overwhelmed with the legal expenses and the threat of going to prison for up to 80 years. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a different realm that we've entered here.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Yeah. It's hard to imagine. And these are not people that have been in trouble with the law. It's not like they're hardened criminals that might be able to handle this readily. I mean, this is a totally new experience for everyone.
Right. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your life to be here in person today. It's really nice because most of our interviews, because of logistics, have been on Zoom or have been pre-recorded. And the fact that you came here live really adds a boost to the energy level in the studio. And it helps, I think, everyone out there understand the commitment people are making to do the right thing. You have any final words you want to say?
No, just my heartfelt sympathies to these electors that are undergoing such a stressful time.
Well, I thank you very much. We've got Steve Bannon on deck, and that's going to be a fun interview. So, again, Patrice Johnson,
thank you, Matt.
You for being
thank
here. God bless.
God bless you.
Thanks for joining, Mr. Bannon.
Hey, Steve.
All right, Mr. Bannon, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly.
Oh, that's great. Folks, you know, there are very few people in U.S. politics that need no introduction. This guy's done it all. And, you know, he has become really the bulldog for all of us in the conservative movement. You know, his war room is legendary already. Steve Bannon, I can't thank you enough for caring enough to be here right now. Thank you.
Well, look, thank you for the kind words, but I'm just a laboring oar. Provided the reason the show's done so well and so big is because we provide a platform for the grassroots. We provide a platform for MAGA to make sure they can get their views out there and to make sure the rest of the country can kind of see what they're doing so we can unite as one. So, but I thank you for the kind words and honored to be here today to support these great patriots. I think the folks in Michigan are the example of American citizens defending the Constitution and defending this republic that are just caught up in this lawfare by these radical Democrats.
You know, what's funny is a few years ago, we had the privilege of bringing you in for the Macomb County Lincoln Day dinner. And Stan Grott was the host, if you remember Stan, and then Shawn Maddock was there and Marion Sheridan. And a lot of these people are the electors that are being charged. And I mean, I know you know them. And that was a great night and a great speech. And, I just want to give you the ball and let you run with it for a few minutes and just talk about what you see going on nationally and talk a little bit about what's going on in Michigan.
Well, I think Michigan's an example of what's happening throughout the country. I tried to say on the show today, the Ken Paxton trial down in Texas, what's happening in Georgia with Fani Willis and what's happening in Michigan is all part of it's a different battle, front in a 30 front war. You're seeing this where this rising populist economic nationalist movement that wants to put America first and sort out what's going on in our country and make sure that we bequeath to future generations the republic, the constitutional republic that was basically given to us by our parents and grandparents is bequeathed to our children and grandchildren. And that's the fight. And that's why you see the going, right now, lawfare in Georgia, lawfare at the federal level against President Trump. You see in Michigan, you have these corrupt attorney general and secretary of state. And I think Jim Hoft every day has come up with evidence of what's going on in Michigan and what went on in Michigan. And I think that it shouldn't surprise anybody that people in Macomb County, which is the heart of where Reagan, quote unquote, Reagan Democrats were kind of born, are at the forefront of this. And they're being singled out. Folks should understand that this is throughout the country watching this telethon this is going to come to a neighborhood near you if we don't stop it in places like Michigan and Georgia right now, because they are bound and determined. The radical left is bound and determined to destroy the MAGA movement.
It's unbelievable. I know we've got a big presidential election coming up, and I know you're right at ground zero. What is your contact or relationship like with President Trump at this time, and is he seeking your strategic advice as he has in the past?
Well, I don't want to talk about personal, contacts, but you can see from the interview or the conversation I had with him in Mar-a-Lago in May, we're very close. And of course, the War Room is the leading platform for the Trump movement and for what President Trump's beliefs are. We're 100%. A big
part of what the Trump movement is because of you.
Well, no, it's President Trump's the leader of our movement, but look, there's so many different aspects of this in the 50 states. What we try to do in War Room is provide a platform so they exchange ideas. People would see what's going on in other states. That's why this telethon is so important for Michigan. People throughout the country in the MAGA movement have to understand what's happening in Michigan is all about stopping this movement. It's about stopping President Trump, but most importantly, they understand that President Trump has built up a massive movement in back of him. That's what they also want to kill. And they want to do that in places like Michigan, where we won in 2016 and quite frankly, won in 2020. There's no doubt about that. It was stolen. So they're going to come hard. And that's why these patriots are so incredible that stood up. Now, the whole thing of the electors, which was totally legal at the time. That's why they had to change the Electoral Count Act of 1887 in the middle of the night in the last omnibus bill. Even if you thought that there might be another way to go about this, it's not relevant, right? It's not relevant. What's relevant is that they're coming after patriots who were just doing their constitutional duty, who were just doing their patriotic duty. and they're going to come after the best first. Those folks that stepped up and said, yes, we, in our reading of the Constitution and our understanding of the Electoral Count Act of 1887, this is perfectly appropriate and needs to be done. Those are the people, those are the activists, those are the people that, like in Macomb County, that are, precinct committeemen, chairman of different county committees, et cetera. They're coming after them. So that is, everybody in the nation ought to be galvanized about this. And that's why their defense is so important. And people throughout the country should understand that and rally to their side. Look, obviously, you look at the war room, we're the platform for President Trump. We're very proud of that. I'm absolutely convinced President Trump, I'm convinced that he won in 2020. And I'm absolutely convinced that a year from now, on the 5th of September, 2024, we're going to have a pretty sizable lead heading into the November election. And we just have to take every effort possible to make sure they don't steal it again.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting too is this isn't just 60 people who, ended up putting their names on a list. These people were all elected by their congressional districts as leaders to be the electors. So they're duly elected electors, and had Trump won the state of Michigan and they submitted their names, there would have been no crime, there would have been nothing that happened. So to just submit your names as the duly elected electors and put it on an alternate list, it wasn't signed by the governor, no one forged a governor's signature. They sent it in so that Vice President Pence would have that list in the event that Michigan was overturned. And somehow they're facing 8 felonies and up to 80 years in prison for doing that.
Look, I think this gets back to Dana Nessel and the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. And this is why I believe what Jim Hoft is doing right now and other investigators around what happened in Michigan is so important. There's clearly so many unanswered questions about Michigan. There's so many facts known that don't comport with what was certified. And that certification has got to be opened back up again and get to the bottom of it. I keep saying it's going to be very tough for the country to go forward until we get to the bottom of the 2020 election. The 2020 election was stolen, no doubt in my mind. And I've looked at the evidence pretty hard. There's no doubt in my mind the 2020 election was stolen, and it was stolen in places like Michigan. So that's why these patriots it's so important to rally to the cause of these patriots to defend them, even if you don't believe that you needed a second set of electors, or if your interpretation of this is that you didn't need that you didn't need the Trump electors, because there's a couple of schools that thought about that. That's not really relevant. What's relevant is they did their duty as they saw their duty and basically got legal advice to do their duty, right? And they stood up as Americans to do what they believed in defense of the Constitution, defense of this republic. And that's why we got to come to we got to rally to their side now.
They literally did it to defend the vote of each congressional district. And had they not done that, and the pending litigation would have been successful, there would have been no list of electors during the count. So this has been done historically. We had Newt Gingrich on earlier, and he gave examples going all the way back to the Hayes-Tillman election, and then Hawaii in 1960, and Gore-Bush in 2000. I mean, nobody's ever been charged, no one's ever been called criminal, and yet here we are, and it happened in Georgia. How do you think?
Well, that's because the radical Democrats, in conjunction with the establishment Republicans. Let's be blunt. In Michigan's the same problem in Georgia, and you're seeing this impeachment trial of Ken Paxton in Texas. This is the Republican establishment, the donor-backed establishment working with radical Democrats, or at least looking the other way as they go after grassroots. This entire thing is to eviscerate, to cut the grass tops off of the grassroots leadership in Georgia, in Michigan. I think it's going to quickly expand to Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin. And, I think maybe even Pennsylvania, but I think definitely Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin, you're going to see this all happen. So that's why we have to fight the fight in Michigan.
It's unbelievable. One last question. What do you see ahead for President Trump? How is he going to balance all of these indictments that are happening all over the place and running for president? What do you see happening?
My advice is just you got to be maniacally focused on the mission and task ahead. The task ahead is to win 2024 in a landslide and to at the same time train up 4,000 people ready to go in and take over this government immediately. The 3,000 political appointees he gets to install on the 20th of January, plus the 1,000 that have to go through Senate confirmation. So the training of those, you have to get the plan in place right now of when you win. And the focus has to be on winning. And you can't be diverted. Your attention can't be diverted with everything they're trying to throw at you. Remember, it's just not what you see here in this lawfare of what they're doing state by state and all the charges. In addition, they've got this whole phony thing about the 14th Amendment, about being disqualified. And you're going to see that taken up in Michigan. They're going to try to disqualify President Trump from the ballot. So there's going to be all types of things to get his attention, to get his team's attention, to bleed him out on money, to bleed him out on time and focus. And you really have to be absolutely, completely focused on the task at hand. It's going to be incredibly tough, but that's why it's providential we have President Trump, because he's a very focused individual and a tough fighter. I've seen that.
Thank you so much, Steve Bannon, for joining us. It was so generous of you to do so. We appreciate you promoting us on your social media and helping these people. Give sendgo.com, Michigan Electors. And right now we're going to educate you a little bit about one of our electors and go off to a video. All right, well, again, we apologize for some of the difficulties in pulling all of this different technology, but we want you to know that we are bringing in Zoom interviews. We are doing people that couldn't be here today, and here's the video.
About living like this, I've described it to people as being diagnosed with cancer. I think that's probably what it's like. You just don't know if you're going to survive it or not. But, you know, of course, you turn much closer to God at times like this.
I feel strong spiritually. I spend a ton of time in prayer. I wake up in the middle of the night and I do have fear. But I mean, that's not new. You know, I've had that before. I try to spend more time in prayer, more time leaning on God's word. And there are so many people that are praying for us. So, you know, it's taken a toll. It's taken a toll on me more where I worry about other people who care about me. I worry about my husband the most because he feels bad about it and he's worried for me. I know he is. And so that hurts me. I feel bad that my kids have to worry and be concerned. I'm happy that I raised 3 kids that are that make light of a lot of things and that they're also very prayerful. You know, I worry about finances. It's taken a toll on us that way, but I know that that's part of the plan. People a lot smarter than me keep telling me that the process is the punishment. And when somebody weaponizes a legal system against people, that the process that they put you through really is the punishment that they envision. And I see.
Well, in these conditions, you find out who your friends truly are. You find out who in the family is willing to bear the brunt with you. And my wife is bearing the brunt. It's very hard on her. It's very harsh on her. It's a very dystopian disillusionment when you're confronted with, the wrongs of the state targeting you. And the wrongs of the state is what we are confronting. We will persevere. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's a tedious journey, and it's a journey, unfortunately, we have to stand up tall to confront, and that's what we're doing. It's unsettling since this has become public. The last 10 days of August, we've done nothing but work on every day for the solution. And the solution will be, by God's grace, where we will persevere.
Well, you just got to keep a really positive attitude. And I always kind of try to look on the bright side of things. And I just have this feeling like God never puts anything in your way that he thinks that you can't handle. So obviously God thinks that I can handle this, and I know in my heart God has my back, and if God has your back, that's all you need.
Church in Sterling Heights, that is, I can't think of it, East Side.
The Metro Church of Christ in Sterling Heights.
The Metro Church of Christ in Sterling Heights. And he felt strongly enough about what's going on here to be here today and to talk to you all about that. Pastor, before we begin the interview, could I impose upon you to have a prayer with our audience?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Let's pray. Lord God, we thank you for you this time, this afternoon, and this morning rather, and we pray that you bless our time together. Father, we pray a special prayer over our country and over our electorate. We pray that you give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make those decisions that are right and acceptable in your sight. And most of all, Father, may we give you the glory and the honor for all that you allow us to do. We love you, Father, and it's in your Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We can't be blessed enough, and these electors can't be blessed enough at this point. The serious nature of these charges, 8 felony counts, up to 80 years in prison for signing their name on a piece of paper to be alternate electors in the event that the pending litigation was successful and President Trump was deemed the winner of Michigan. I'm going to back out of the process for a minute and let you take the ball and run with it. So what would you like to talk about?
I mean, really, Matt, right? Is that?
Yes.
I want to make sure I said that correctly, okay? Well, really, you know, the Bible says that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities in high places. And I believe our fight is a spiritual war. It's against good and evil. And sometimes evil is quite aware of what it's doing, and sometimes Satan uses human beings to achieve his outcomes. And when we look at our elections, we talk about cheating in our elections. Let's just look at life for what it is as human beings. If you have ever played a game of cards, people cheat in cards. People cheat in basketball. People cheat in, that's why we have referees. And so then we have to determine the best way to achieve the right outcomes and be truthful and right. And first and foremost, I think we need to give God his glory. I think our country had gotten away from God and gotten away from our founding principles. And until we get really back to that and come to God to help us in these times, because God, the Bible says that he lifts up who he will and he sits down who he will. And even when someone is lifted up that we don't agree with, and there may have been some, what I'll call foul play going on, this is the outcome that we have, and then we have to ask ourselves, how did this actually happen?
Right.
And so from a spiritual standpoint, again, I look at the book of Daniel, and in Daniel, there are several kings that come up, and they're set down. What comes to mind is Nebuchadnezzar. He got excited about he was king, he was Lord over all, and he thought it was all about him.
Shot an arrow at him.
Exactly, and God let him know, no, I'm still in charge.
Tower of Babel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what we have to do when all is said and done, if the candidate that we want is in office, I would hope that candidate would give God glory.
And you know, President Trump has done that.
He has.
He's really tried to lead the nation back to prayer. What an unlikely person to be that leader. And yet, God always seems to select someone that has got a torrid past, is not perfect, and uses them and elevates them to exceptional heights, like Saul.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even not just Saul, but even King David.
Yes.
I mean, King David, if we looked at just King David's, the things that he did wrong, he would not be elected president of the United States of America. But God said he was a man after his own heart because he He put God first, and he's unlikely. And just like you just mentioned about our former President Trump, he was an unlikely candidate to bring prayer and to support life and to support be pro-life. He was an unlikely candidate, but God can use any of us if we're willing to allow him to use us.
Yeah, it's so true. And I feel like at this point, America's in a crossroads. It is a spiritual battle that's going on. All of this, stuff about 27 genders and, hormone therapy for children and all of these pushes that are being, imposed upon us. They're evil.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Bible says clearly that God made male and female. There is no in between. There is only male, there is only female, and he also created marriages between male and female. And since we're talking about this particular subject, there is no traditional marriage, it's just marriage. We see our language, we allow things to creep into our language. When you look in Scripture, it's just marriage. It's just marriage. What is marriage? It's between a male and a female. If we want to know the definition, go to the person that laid the definition from the beginning. If we want to know how many genders there are, go back to the beginning, and you get then you'll get the answer. These are the foundations. I don't want to get too theological, but there's a term that we use in theology. It's called the principle of first mention. And whenever it's first mentioned in Scripture, that is what it is, and that's its intention. Male is first mentioned in Genesis, and marriage, as a matter of fact, is first mentioned in Genesis. And when they questioned Jesus in the book of Matthew, he said, haven't you read what God told you in the beginning? Even Jesus went back to the principle of first mention. So marriage and transgender, and these are fights, again, that are spiritual, that Satan are bringing to our doorstep, and we as Christians have to stand strong on God's word.
Amen. I'd like to ask you to just look into the camera and make a plea to this audience and tell them why it's important that these people are not ruined financially just trying to clear their own good names.
Well, it's important that you support these individuals that are fighting for our rights, fighting for our liberties. Satan uses tools to fight against us, and one of those tools, he tries to break us. That is his job. That's what he tried to do with our Lord and Savior. But we know the outcome, that he rose, we won. We live in a world where persecutions will come, but we have to depend on the one that created us to help us, to give us the strength, to give us the courage to overcome. And it's important that while we are praying, that while we are fasting, that we also do our part today and now to support those who are fighting for us.
Is there anything that you can advise us to tell our own children, for our own families? How do we weather this battle? How do we keep God at the forefront of our lives?
That's a very good question. The Bible says in Deuteronomy that we are to speak to our children when we lay down. We are to speak to them when we walk along the way, that we are to talk to them about God when we are at the dinner table. Satan has done what I will say a phenomenal job of talking to our children. When they get up, they're on their phones, they're on their computer screen, they're running into the different situations within the school system. We as parents, God has given us the first responsibility of raising our children. And so we have to combat that, really, because he has said it is our responsibility to do all those things that I just mentioned. And when we look at it, the school system is actually a partner of ours. They are our assistant to help us raise the children. It's not their primary responsibility, it's our primary responsibility as parents first. And then if the assistant isn't doing what we want them to do, what do we do with assistants that don't do what we're supposed to do? We have to fire them and get another assistant.
I think there's a very famous term President Trump used to say, "You're fired."
Exactly. So as parents, we have to understand that we are 100% in control over our own children, not the school system, not the government, not even the church. It's us. We are given the first responsibility for caring for our children. And if anything is said, done to our disagreement in that school system or wherever it might be, we have the first responsibility of protecting our children, and they expect us to do that, actually.
Well, Pastor Don Eastman, thank you so much for being here today. The fact that you would take time out of your life to drive down here and to be part of this broadcast means a lot to everyone, and we appreciate your presence and your prayer.
Well, thank you, Matt, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, this is your moment because I was just handed a piece of paper and we got a $1,000 donation. Thank you, Pastor. You must have moved some. From Truckers for Freedom, Michigan. And we are doing everything we can at this point to raise as much money to defray these illegal expenses so that these poor people, or just regular people like you and I, aren't devastated and ruined financially. A lot of people have said during this broadcast that the punishment is actually the process. And the truth is that we can't let the financial ruin that's intended to take place here take place, and it only can happen as if we all come together. And with that, Pastor, I'll thank you for being on the set, and we can move on to our next segment, which is going to be Kari Lake, and I believe she's been in the waiting room on our Zoom. And for those of you who may not know.
I could have this posted. Do you want me to put it out on my social media? I didn't get any links or anything.
Yes.
Arizona, and she
Yes, I'll send it over to Megan.
a very simple.
Okay. You know what? Let me give you. Yeah, send it to her, and I'll text her to get it to Ross and my team right away, because she doesn't really have access to my social media. But if you could send it to her.
I think that our sound feeds are crossing right now. And
Megan, Matt is going to send you the link. We need to get it on our social media ASAP. Can you send it over to Alex and Colton and Shawn and make sure they get it up on all of our social media?
And again, folks.
Yeah, we've got a couple million people, so that might be helpful to get that out.
I will email that right over to.
This is an amateur broadcast on my behalf. I'm not a professional broadcaster, and we have a lot of people here in the studio who are just volunteers who feel passionately that these people need our help, and we've all stepped up and stepped forward. But at times, you're going to see these little hiccups, and we apologize for them. The good news is it looks as though we're close to pulling Kari Lake into this interview, and
Megan will be sending it to you.
Zoom, and this is something that technically isn't as easy as it looks, evidently. So in the meantime, I ask you to consider scanning that QR code that's on your screen, or calling the 1-800 number 88. It's not a 1-800 number. It's the 1-888 number, 888-403-8550. And with that, I believe we are ready to go with Kari Lake. Kari, can you hear me? Okay. We'll give her a second here. I think I need to be unmuted. And okay, I'd love to be able to see her. Kari, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Matt. Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. I want to begin by just saying I am a huge fan of yours. I followed your run for governor. I used to love it when you would have this, swarm of press around you, and they'd ask these same questions, and you would stop and go, well, what a real reporter would do is they would go out and do X, Y, and Z, and you really should take a journalism class, because when I'm governor, I'm not going to put up with any of this. And I just used to love the way you would take the fight to the press, because really they are such a hindrance to the truth, and they are intentionally giving disinformation.
Well, they're not journalists anymore. They become full-on propagandists for the government, and we know our government has turned on the people, and so it's really disappointing. I really enjoyed going after them because I knew what they were up to. I worked 30 years as a journalist, and I walked away from my career when I recognized that it was no longer journalism. So I enjoyed that part of running, and unfortunately, we have elections that are being run like they are in banana republics, and I'm continuing to fight for honest elections. But what's happening around this country with our government turning on the people, arresting people for exercising their rights is it's one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
If President Trump were to ask you to be his running mate, how do you feel about that? Would that be something you'd do?
I'm really about the here and now, and I'm seriously considering a run for the U.S. Senate in Arizona. We have an opportunity to pick up a Senate seat so we can get a senator in D.C. that will represent the people of Arizona rather than their own special interests. And so I'm really considering that. At the same time, I'm doing everything I can to help President Trump get reelected. He's exactly what we need right now. We know that he can do the job because he did it very well for 4 years, and we need him to get us back on track. Frankly, we need him to help save America.
You know, it was funny because when he was in office, it was almost like watching this sprinter try to compete as they're throwing objects in his way and he's hurdling them and still winning the race. It was unbelievable how much he was able to get done in the face of all the adversity that was tossed his way, from the Mueller report to everything else that went on.
That's right. Now imagine if he had people in D.C. who had his back, who said, yes, we love your America First agenda. And we too are going to go to DC and be advocates for America and for our constituents. Imagine what we could accomplish. We could get, even though Joe Biden has led us down this disastrous path, we could turn things around really quickly. And so I'm going to do everything I can to help President Trump get reelected. Anything he needs from me, I will help in any way, because I know he's fighting for the people. But right now I'm looking at a potential run for U.S. Senate. I am but number one dedicated to my election integrity battle here in Arizona, because the people of Arizona had their sacred right to vote snatched from them and trampled. And we can't allow that to continue on.
What would you say to the viewing audience as far as a plea is concerned, as to why this first telethon is so significant and why we need to support these everyday people who are real heroes in my eye, because they are facing this giant, terrifying legal action that is going to cost possibly their entire estate just to clear their own good name?
Well, I understand more than anyone, because I'm in the middle of lawfare right now, being sued by a government official, an election official, and a politician who don't like the fact that I'm speaking the truth about the corruption in our election system. So I'm being sued for defamation. I also have several cases in the courts, and we are in a fight for our life in the court system. So I understand the stress, the pressure, even sometimes the fear that you feel when you're facing another legal hurdle. And that's why I agreed to come and help today, because these people, I was looking through the list of these, we've got an 82-year-old who's being harassed with lawfare. We have an 81-year-old named Rose Rook. We have a 73-year-old, Michelle Lundgren. And, you go down this list, 75-year-old Clifford Frost. These are just patriotic Michiganders, and they care about election integrity. And they saw the not even shenanigans, full-on corruption that was being played out in real time in Michigan. And we're seeing more and more of it unfolding and the truth coming out right now. And so the AG of your state to weaponize her office and go after these people who did absolutely nothing wrong and try to throw them in prison for the rest of their life is truly one of the most outrageous, I think, criminal acts I've ever seen against the people of this good country. So I'm here hoping that those who are listening or listen to this in the future will consider making a donation to the legal fund for all of these good people who've done nothing wrong except try to do the right thing and restore election integrity and faith in our elections.
Truly. And, when you think about the fact that they were duly elected in their congressional districts as electors, these just aren't 16 random people. They were elected to be electors, and they were called to the party headquarters and executed a document that couldn't be signed by the governor and sent it to the vice president as an alternate list for Michigan. Had the pending litigation been successful, we would have had electors in place. So somehow
that's right.
That warrants 8 felony counts and up to 80 years imprisonment.
It's absolutely horrible what's happening. And let's face it, Joe Biden did not win 81 million votes. You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to understand that. You don't lose 17 of 18 bellwethers and only win 16% of the counties. And those wins are under heavy scrutiny right now, and win the most votes in the history of this country. It's not possible. It didn't happen. And they're trying to force us through fear tactics, like what they're doing to these 16 wonderful patriotic people and many others around the country. They're trying to force us to believe their lies or else, to believe their gaslighting or else. We will come after you. Well, they're going to have to come after each and every one of us, because we will not believe these lies. We will not have this gaslighting forced on us. And we know what's going on in our country. And we are going to stand up at this moment, this pivotal moment in the history of this great nation, and fight for election reform and fight to rid our elections of fraud and corruption and all the corrupt individuals who've been part of it.
Well, you know, I really hope you do run for Senate. I think you'd be an amazing senator. I thought you were going to be an amazing governor, and I believe you were elected. I really like your approach to things. I like your can-do attitude. And I like the fact that you stand up for yourself and are unapologetic about it with the media. And I think that your popularity is huge, and I think that you've got way more support than maybe you may even know. And the fact that you would take the time out of your life to be here for this telethon says a lot about who you are as a person, and I really, really am grateful for it. Do you think this is the most important battle going on in our country right now?
I really do, and I see a big red flag go up every time I see Republicans say, you know, we have to just look beyond 2020 and the 2022 election and focus on the future. How do you focus on the future when you have elections that are being stolen and are corrupt? It's very hard to move past that. And I go out and I talk to people all around the country. And people, you know, of course, my number one issue running for governor of Arizona was we're going to secure the border. As a sovereign state, we will take it upon ourselves to secure our border. And I also wanted to work very hard to reform our elections so that every voter, whether they were Democrat, Independent, or Republican, or anywhere in between, would go to the polls and know their one legal vote counted. It wasn't being watered down with phony, invalid ballots. So, you know, these were some big priorities like ending chronic street homelessness. We had major priorities. But how do we accomplish those priorities, accomplish getting the solutions in play for those problems, if we can't actually get the people elected that we, the people, want in office? And so that's why I believe election integrity is the most important issue of our time. This is why they don't want us talking about it. I mean, it's taboo to talk about election corruption and election fraud. Have you noticed that? Yet you can go into an elementary school and talk about inappropriate, very inappropriate things such as sex and transgender ideology to young students, but you can't speak out about election corruption. That tells you we have struck a nerve with the deep state. This is how they are keeping control over us, is through bogus elections.
Kari Lake, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you being here and supporting this cause.
Thank you. And I'm urging everyone watching to make a donation, help in any way possible. We need to make sure that these great patriotic folks have the ability to fight for their rights in court and to be freed from these ridiculous charges.
Thanks again. Now at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock, in the next hour, we're going to have Mike Lindell, Shawn Farash, and Jodan Gorman. And it should be an incredible broadcast. Looking forward to it. And at this time, we're just asking people to please share this on your social media, plug it on your Twitter, plug it on your Facebook, plug it on all the groups you belong to. Let's get this word out there. Let's let this thing go viral. You can go to givesendgo.com/Michigan Electors. And now it looks like we're going to go right into a video. And here we go. And here we go.
Yep. Well, I absolutely believe that what the electors did was a perfectly fine thing to do. They didn't violate any law by doing so. And there was so many irregularities and anomalies in the 2020 election. I think the vast majority of people believe that. And why wouldn't you put your name on something if you truly felt that there could be an honest investigation into this, and doing the right thing for your country? That's a big part of reason why I stepped up to run for the state legislature, because there were a lot of things that were off. There are a lot of things that didn't add up and make sense. And why is there anything wrong with questioning that? Believe that what the electors did was this today and is aware of what is really truly going on with the 16 of these electors, that you would feel compelled to even just donate to them. What they're going through is beyond what we could even imagine. This is financially going to impact every single one of them, and they are going to need our support. We can't just be out there rallying and standing anymore. We have to get our pocketbooks open now. We need to put money where our mouth is and help these people out. I personally know 4 of these people. I'm doing things on my part that I can do with donors that I know. And I just really encourage each of you that are listening to this, that are aware, that you would do what you can to give and help them out. And we're just going to keep fighting on the forefront for this and speaking out for truth and for our freedom.
Closer to God at times like this.
I feel strong spiritually. I spent a ton of time in prayer. I wake up in the middle of the night and I do have fear. But I mean, that's not new. You know, I've had that before. I try to spend more time in prayer, more time leaning on God's word. And there are so many people that are praying for us. So, you know, it's taken a toll. It's taken a toll on me more where I worry about other people who care about me. I worry about my husband the most because he feels bad about it and he's worried for me. I know he is. And so that hurts me. I feel bad that my kids have to worry and be concerned. I'm happy that I raised 3 kids that are that make light of a lot of things and that they're also very prayerful. You know, I worry about finances. It's taken a toll on us that way, but I know that that's part of the plan. People a lot smarter than me keep telling me that the process is the punishment. And when somebody weaponizes a legal system against people, that the process that they put you through really is the punishment that they envision. And I see.
Well, in these conditions, you find out who your friends truly are. You find out who in the family is willing to bear the brunt with you. And my wife is bearing the brunt. It's very hard on her. It's very harsh on her. It's a very dystopian disillusionment when you're confronted with, the wrongs of the state targeting you. And the wrongs of the state is what we are confronting. We will persevere. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's a tedious journey, and it's a journey, unfortunately, we have to stand up tall to confront, and that's what we're doing. It's unsettling since this has become public. The last 10 days of August, we've done nothing but work on every day for the solution. And the solution will be, by God's grace, where we will persevere.
Well, you just got to keep a really positive attitude. And I always kind of try to look on the bright side of things. And I just have this feeling like God never puts anything in your way that he thinks that you can't handle. So obviously God thinks that I can handle this, and I know in my heart God has my back, and if God has your back, that's all you need.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Telethon Live. Some of these pre-recordings are just so powerful, and I think that it makes everyone aware of the fact that this could just happen to them. We all love our country. We all love our president. We all felt something was weird with the election. Something had gone wrong, and these people who were duly elected basically signed an alternate list of electors and sent it off to Washington, D.C., which had been done, throughout time in our history as a country. And no one has ever been charged with anything. And here now they're facing 8 felonies and up to 80 years in prison. They need your support. They need your help to defray these paralyzing, overwhelming legal costs. So please go to givesendgo.com/Michigan Electors. Share this on your social media at gatewaypundit.com or Gateway Pundit Rumble feed. And this next guest we have is a real treat. He's a political commentator and comedian, and he does hands down the best imitation of Donald Trump I've ever heard. And with that, I'd like to ask that we all welcome Shawn Farash. Shawn, can you hear me? I'm not unmuted. Now you are. Shawn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Welcome to the program, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. The other night I saw a video of you. President Trump had just released his mugshot, and you went off to imitate him with him standing next to you. That was priceless. How did that all unfold?
So this was the meeting happened at an event in Bedminster and this is a great cause that what we're doing here, trying to raise money, obviously, for these electors who are being railroaded by an out of control, weaponized justice system. We have to put a stop to that first and foremost. And I've been trying to make calls to everybody around the political sphere, especially people who we consider on our side, even if they're not choosing our candidate in the primary, that the weaponization of government is terrible. And so we were at an event for January 6thers in Bedminster, another group who has been, put in the crosshairs of a weaponized DOJ and weaponized federal government. And we were there. The Patriot Freedom Project was putting this on, and he was in the room. And next thing I know, I'm being called on stage to kind of do a little bit for him, and he seemed to enjoy it. It was a late night. He seemed to enjoy it a lot. He extended his hand for a handshake, obviously took the opportunity, told me it was very good. And that was really fun. But obviously the cause was more important there. And I'm happy that everybody saw that. And that's what I kind of like doing with this impersonation and kind of some of the funny skits that I'll put together on the internet. I want people to laugh and we can put our feet up and kind of relax. But I want people to also understand that while what I may be doing is funny, we need to be paying attention to the issue at hand here, right? Whether it's January 6th, whether it's these Michigan electors who need our help, because this could be any of us. It could be any of us at any time. And so, that's the goal of what I try to do. And obviously, I try to be a very serious commentator, every day on LFA TV. It's our show. It's called Ungoverned. And we talk about all these different issues all the time. And try to make sure that people understand what's actually happening in the country, because, we can't just sit idly by while a group of people are politically persecuted if we don't think think that's going to wind up on our doorstep as well. You know, we can't just sit idly by. Ask Moms for Liberty. You know, I mean, they became domestic terrorists simply for attending school board meetings and protesting education, you know, problems that were happening in the public school system. So, you know, my biggest message to everybody is we have to just pay attention. We've got to make sure that if we see the government, you know, acting and getting out of control and just throwing people, you know, throwing the entire system and the kitchen sink at them, like what's happening in Michigan to these electors, which the Democrats have done for a very long time, you know, that we all have to take a stand together in unity to stop it from happening in the future, or one of us will be next one day.